Chapter 478. The meat that was in her mouth was gone. She was so sad. She needed the little master to kiss, hug, and raise her up high. A faint smile hung on Xiao Bao's face as he gently scratched the fat rabbit's chin. "I'll bring you to the beast battle arena in a while. This time, I'll let you eat your fill." The fat rabbit immediately let out a happy purr. Young master, this rabbit. What on earth was it? He actually swallowed so many exotic beasts, and still managed to spit them out alive. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? Even in the Shushan continent, he had never seen such a divine beast. No wonder Jun Shang's eyes are a little strange every time he sees the fat rabbit. And every time the fat rabbit meets Jun Shang, it would be so scared that it would scurry away like a rat, never daring to stay in front of Jun Shang for too long. Could it be that Jun Shang already knew that this rabbit wasn't simple? Han Yi is still in shock, when suddenly a loud bang is heard from inside the room. Immediately after, an exotic beast with a thick stench of blood flew toward the door. That strange beast is bigger than the three of them put together. When it was flying in the air, its sharp fangs were already exposed. The beast's roar was filled with violence and savagery. And the direction in which the exotic beast fell happened to be in the direction of Ying Mei. "Little shadow, be careful." Han Yi doesn't even think about it. He pounces over, grabs Ying Mei, and rolls over on the spot. The exotic beast landed less than half a meter away from the two of them. Roar! It opens its bloody mouth wide, as if it wants to swallow Han Yi and Ying Mei together. Han Yi doesn't even think about it. He pours spiritual power into his fist and ruthlessly punches the strange beast. He originally thought that after being poisoned by the spirit-devouring powder, his arm would be bitten off by the beast. But who would have thought that when he punched out, the wind generated by his fist would surge wildly. Then, the sound of the exotic beast's bones shattering could be heard. There was a bang. The beast fell to the ground, dead. Han Yi blankly stares at his own hand, then looks at the completely unharmed Ying Mei in his arms. Then, he looked at Xiao Bao in disbelief. The spirit-devouring powder has been dispelled. However, the spirit-devouring powder was a pill recipe from the Shushan continent. If it's refined in the Yanwu continent, the effect might not even be 1/10. But even if it was only 1/10 of it, it was not something that could be easily solved. Xiao Bao looks at him in disgust. Nyangqin's medicinal pills are omnipotent. Han Yi suddenly remembers the elixir that Xiao Bao had just fed him and Ying Mei. Then, he lowered his head and circulated the spiritual energy in his body. As expected, the spiritual energy that had originally disappeared was slowly growing in his dantian like a trickle. He was so shocked by the changes in his body that he couldn't think. "I already knew that Miss June was powerful, but I didn't expect that she would actually be powerful to this extent." His and Ying Mei's bodies are completely different from the people of Yanwu continent. For the people of the Yanwu continent, precious and wondrous medicines are just like trash to them. Therefore, when the people under Mayan are going wild with joy for obtaining her drafts and elixirs, Han Yi has never thought of fighting over it. Why would he care about such a thing used by mortals? But now that things have come to this, Han Yi really wants to slap himself. What mortals use? She didn't care about anything. If he could return to the past, he would definitely kneel in front of Miss June and beg desperately. Such a precious medicinal pill, whoever didn't want it would be a fool. The spirit-devouring powder in Ying Mei's body was deeper than cold nights, so his spiritual power hadn't clearly recovered yet. Chapter 479. Therefore, after eating the pill, he began to silently circulate his mental cultivation method. Sure enough, at this moment, the spiritual power finally began to return. Ying Mei recalled the humiliation and despair she had felt a moment ago, and her mood was indescribably agitated. She looked down at Xiaobao, her eyes filled with gratitude. Little master, thank you. You and the young miss saved me again. Xiaobao shook his head like a little adult. You're welcome. Elder sister Mei is a good person. Xiaobao doesn't want elder sister Mei to die. Mei slowly knelt down in front of Xiaobao. From now on, Mei swears to be loyal to Miss and Little Master. If I go against this, may the heavens and earth destroy me, and the world will not tolerate me. As soon as she finished speaking, a red light flashed around her body and slowly disappeared. Han Yi slightly widens his eyes. The oath that the Shadow Enchantress made was the harshest, heart-binding curse of the polar domain. Once the heart-binding curse was made, if one violated it, then the result would be even more miserable than death. Mei, she really intends to be loyal to Jun Shang, to Miss and Xiaobao as if they were her masters. And Miss and young master were indeed worthy of such respect and loyalty. Han Yi only hesitates for a moment, then he also slowly kneels down. Han Yi, swear that from now on, I vow to be loyal and faithful to Miss and the Little Master. If I violate this oath, heaven and earth will not tolerate it. The red light also flashed and slowly disappeared. Little Bao blinked, and a rare trace of bewilderment appeared on his frosty little face. The two of them cast the heart-binding curse with a straight face and stood up from the ground. Mei's body swayed and she almost knelt down again. Little Shadow. Han Yi promptly supports her. His hands inadvertently touch a soft, bumpy place. Han Yi is so startled that he almost jumps up from where he is. Then, the shock, hatred, and fear slowly dissipated. The voice that had been hovering in his mind earlier, clamoring louder and louder, became clearer and clearer. Han Yi couldn't help but look at the girl that he's holding in his arms. Her face was so red that it seemed as if water could drip out of it. Little Shadow, so you're a girl. At first, when he heard Xiaobao calling Mei big sister, he thought that Xiaobao was too young and mistaking Mei's gender. Only now did he realize that the truly foolish person was actually himself. Han Yi foolishly looks at Mei's face, there are almost ripples in his eyes. Mei's cold expression could no longer be maintained. A blush crept up her cheeks. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. Have you seen enough? Not enough. Han Yi blurts out, it's not enough for a lifetime. Little Shadow, you look really good like this. Although Mei's clothes had already been changed into ordinary men's clothes. However, there was no binding bandage on his chest. Her hair was also unbound. Her beauty could not be concealed at all. Han Yi can only feel his heart thumping non-stop. These days, he could not sleep well day and night, thinking that he had fallen in love with his best brother. She thought that her dirty thoughts had tainted the Shadow Enchantress. But it turned out that Mei was actually a girl. Realizing this, the joy and sweetness in her heart rose like bubbles in a hot spring. A silly smile appeared on his face. Mei was embarrassed and annoyed by his stare. Plus, Xiaobao and the fat rabbit were looking at her. Chapter 480. Han Yi clutches his stomach, his expression tangled as he lets out a muffled groan. Seeing his pained expression, Mei couldn't help but panic inside. She faintly feels distressed from the bottom of her heart. That punch just now shouldn't have been heavy, right? Did she really injure Han Yi? The apprehension in her heart makes her frown fiercely. In the end, she can't control the worry in her heart. She approaches Han Yi and says with a cold face, I didn't use much spiritual power, you can't be that useless. Before she could finish speaking, she is suddenly hugged by the man in front of her. Han Yi's slightly hoarse voice rings in her ear, Little Shadow, you still care about me. I'm so happy. Scoundrel, let go. Mei struggles with all her might. It's clear that Han Yi is inferior to her in their usual competition. But at this very moment, the man's scorching breath is on her neck, unexpectedly making her heart feel as if it's being tickled by countless feathers. Her body inexplicably bursts with warmth, making her weak and unable to budge. Damn it! Could it be that the effects of the medicine that Xian-ji gave her still hasn't faded? Just then, a violent explosion is heard from inside the room. It's followed by a thick, nauseating smell of blood. Countless corpses of strange beasts, as if swept up by a hurricane, rush out from inside. Han Yi and the other two promptly disperse. Soon after, they see Xian-ji coming out from inside, his eyes red from head to toe. "Little bastard, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to peel off your skin inch by inch." Xian-ji steps towards Xiao Bao, his eyes fierce and tyrannical. However, before he could approach, Mei has already stepped forward, blocking in front of Xiao Bao. Xian-ji's gaze slowly falls on Mei's androgynous and beautiful face, revealing a sinister smile. "What? I didn't let you taste the taste of ecstasy just now, and Mei Darren still can't forget me. Rest assured, wait until I've dealt with that little bastard and Han Yi, then I'll definitely let you get what you want. Today, none of you can escape." There's no change in Mei's expression. With a flick of her wrist, a long sword appears in her hand, and she slowly unsheathes it. "I also said that once I get out, I'll dismember your body into 10,000 pieces, making you beg for death, but unable to." Mei's voice carried the unique clarity and cleanliness of a young man, yet it was mixed with a trace of ice-cold killing intent that made people tremble in fear. Xian-ji stared blankly, his complexion slightly changing. How can you move? There is no one in the Yenwu continent who can solve the effects of the spirit-devouring powder. Clang! The sword was completely unsheathed, gleaming with a cold light. Do you want to know the reason? Go to the 18 hells and ask the real King Yenluo. An hour later. Mei sheathed her sword and kicked a pile of wriggling rotten flesh to the side. The rabbit in Xiaobao's arms stared fixedly at the person who was slowly walking over, and it couldn't help but shiver. This Mei looked like a crystal-clear and beautiful youth, but his methods of torturing people were really too terrifying. She was even worse than the she-devil. Clearly, that Xian-ji could not even persist for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea under his hands. But he was tortured by her for an hour. By now, not only had his skin been peeled off, more than half of his bones had been pulled out. He was half dead, but he was still struggling at death's door. Right now, he's a little envious of Xiao Bao. Han Yi had covered his eyes, and he couldn't see anything. The fat rabbit, who had been watching the whole time, expresses that it doesn't want to eat meat these days. Chapter 481. Little master, it's over, let's go back. Mei's voice slowly comes. With gentleness and respect, there's not even half a bit of that ferocious appearance from just a moment ago. Xiao Bao blinks his big eyes, and obediently lets Mei lead him out of this hidden underground stone room. He hasn't seen Yangqin for a day, and he misses her very much. Behind them, Han Yi looks resentfully at Xiao Bao's small hand being held, wishing that he could take that hand and hold it instead. Thinking of his own performance today, his expression is incomparably dejected. He's really too useless. He couldn't save the damsel in distress. Instead, he had to rely on the Mrs. Medicine and the little master's help to get out of danger. If he really caused Little Shadow to be tainted by that beast, he really wouldn't have the face to live on. Even the final revenge was taken care of by Little Shadow alone. He wasn't of any help at all. Even in the polar domain, among Jun Shang's confidants, there are many who are more handsome than him, more powerful than him, and more worthy of Little Shadow than him. What qualifications does he have to delusively think that he can stand by Little Shadow's side? Slowly, Han Ye's footsteps become as heavy as lead. His heart, which was originally burning with passion, fell to the bottom of a valley. Just then, Ingmei's clear and cold voice suddenly comes from ahead. "Idiot, what are you still doing there?" Han Yi stares blankly, and promptly quickens his pace to keep up with Ingmei. However, his expression is still dispirited, and he doesn't even dare to lift his eyes to look at Ingmei. Ingmei sighs softly, loosens Xiao Bao's hand, and says in a low voice, "My foot seems to be injured, it hurts to walk." "Ah! Your foot is injured. How could it be? Is it serious?" Han Yi suddenly panics, and promptly goes to check on Ingmei's injury. Ingmei's foot is indeed stained with a lot of blood, looking somewhat frightening. But Han Yi doesn't know that the blood is Xian Ji's. In other words, with Ingmei's physical body, once her spiritual power is restored, ordinary injuries can be healed in the blink of an eye. However, in his panic, Han Yi simply can't think of this. Ingmei sees his flustered and bewildered appearance, and a hint of warmth flits through her eyes. "Idiot, what are you making a racket for? Carry me back." "Ah!" Han Yi stares foolishly for a long time before he suddenly comes back to himself. With a red face, he squatted down and carried Ingmei on his back. When the girl's soft body presses against his back, Han Ye's whole body stiffens, almost forgetting to breathe. Xiao Bao carries the fat rabbit and follows behind the two people. Watching Han Ye's manner of walking like a snail, they can't help but shake their heads. "Bun bun, idiot, Uncle Han Yi will definitely be henpecked in the future." The phrase, henpecked husband, was something that Xiao Bao and his mother had seen together in Bailey Liuin's notebook. The fat rabbit raised its head to look at Xiao Bao, blinked its mung-bean eyes, and thought, even that scary Di Jun is henpecked, so what's so strange about Di Jun's subordinates being henpecked? Huangyao country. The moon was dark and the wind was strong. All was silent. In a remote valley, there was a thick smell of blood and decay, and heart-wrenching wails filled the night. After a long time, the wailing finally disappeared without a trace. However, the stench of blood and decay was getting stronger. "Princess, what do you think of this batch of corpse soldiers?" Under the dim light of the night, a tall, ugly woman with a face full of wrinkles and brownish-black lines stands in front of Gong Qinxue. There's an indescribable pride hanging on her face. Not far from the two people, there are hundreds of people standing. Chapter 482. Only to see that all of them have reached Earth stage. But there's not a trace of spirit in their eyes. There were even spots of decay on his exposed skin. It looks indescribably horrifying. Gong Qinxue looks at these people and the woman at her side, disgust and pride intertwined in her eyes. But when she looks at the ugly woman at her side, she immediately puts on a grateful and trusting expression. "Sister Lu say, I'm certainly at ease when you do things. You helped me cultivate this batch of corpse soldiers, now their strength has already reached Earth stage, solving a lot of problems for me. Lu say, thank you, you're my best friend." Saying that, she directly grasps the woman's hand. This woman is called Lu Sei. It sounds like a beautiful name, but not to mention her ugly face. Even her hand is wrinkled, like the pitted bark of a tree that's been gnawed by worms, disgusting. However, when Gong Qinxue grabs it, there's not a trace of change on her face, instead it's brimming with sincerity. Lu Sei's ugly face shows a trace of emotion. Ever since she turned into this ghastly appearance, only Gong Qinxue is willing to treat her as a friend, treat her as a normal person. So, no matter what, she will definitely help Gong Qinxue. However, Lu Sei doesn't see it. Just as she lets go of her hand, the moment she turns around, Gong Qinxue immediately wipes her hand on her clothes. There's a look of incomparable loathing on her face. But thinking of Lu Sei's ability, Gong Qinxue holds back this loathing. Lu Sei, this woman, she's still useful. Not to mention that the corpse soldiers she refined are almost invincible, who knows how much trouble they've helped her solve. For example, a family that's now dead here. Guarding a gold mine, she wants them to give it up, but they unexpectedly refuse. They don't know what's good for them, then let them be buried in the gold mine forever. Of course, the most important thing is still Lu Sei's identity. Huang Yao's King of Hell. That's right, even Jian Feng and the Heavenly Road sect don't know that Gong Qinxue has long controlled Huang Yao's ghost city in her hands through Lu Sei. Now, even Jing Cheng's ghost city will soon be covered by Xian Ji's hand. As long as the hindrance Ghost King Guyu is eliminated. At that time, the entire ghost city will be dug out by her. All the resources inside belong to her. The light in Gong Qinshue's eyes shines brightly because she thinks of these. Oh, by the way, big sister Lu Sei, didn't you say that Xian Ji said last time that there's a way to control the Ghost King? Has he sent back any news? How is it going? Princess, rest assured, Xian Ji sent news a few days ago, saying that he has reached an agreement with Ghost City Shilonling, Shenzi, to let her help him refine a kind of elixir. Even if it was the Ghost King Guyu, in the face of such a pill, he would not have the strength to fight back. Ghost King Guyu will definitely die. When she spoke of Xian Ji, a strange light flashed in Lu Sei's eyes, as if she was missing him, and also as if she was bashful. Gong Qinxue chuckled and said, Big brother Xian Ji and big sister Lu Sei are really a match made in heaven. Back then, big brother Xian Ji was on the verge of death and fell into the misty forest. Thanks to big sister Lu Sei, you saved him. Then, from then on, big brother Xian Ji devoted himself to you, big sister, and it became a story told. It really makes one envious. As he spoke, his gaze caught a glimpse of Lu Sei's face, and he felt a wave of nausea. Lu Sei, this idiot, was really stupid. She really thought that Xian Ji liked her. Chapter 483. Only Lu Sei, this idiot, still thought that Xian Ji's feelings for her were deeply rooted, and that he was single-minded. She didn't even think about it. Who would fancy her with her appearance that was neither human nor ghost? But on the surface, Gong Qinxue didn't show it at all. Instead, her face was full of blessings and gratitude. Big brother Xian Ji really has a lot of ability. After entering Jingqing country's ghost city for just a few years, he's already become the king of hell, and he even has complete control of the ghost city in his hands. Truly worthy of being the man that sister Lu Sei fancies. The expression on Lu Sei's face grew sweeter and more complacent. Her smile squeezed the potholes and wrinkles on her face together. It looked extremely terrifying. Gong Qinxue couldn't hold it in any longer. She looked elsewhere, and when she saw the hundreds of corpse soldiers not far away, she couldn't help but feel her blood boil. No matter how ugly and disgusting Lu Sei was, as long as she could raise these corpse soldiers, he had to put up with her. Because these zombie soldiers were controlled by Lu Sei using her own foster mother Gu. Once Lu Sei died, these corpse soldiers would also turn into nothingness. Gong Qinxue had spent countless resources on these corpse soldiers. If she failed at the last moment, she would definitely not be able to bear it. He was about to smile and compliment Lu Sei a few more times. Suddenly, Lu Sei's body emitted a cloud of black smoke. Immediately after, a blood-red bug drilled out from Lu Sei's neck. After falling to the ground, he rolled a few times in extreme pain and finally breathed his last. Seeing this scene, Lu Sei's eyes suddenly widened, and she let out a scream of horror. No, impossible. This is impossible. The voice was so sharp that it almost pierced through the clouds. Gong Qinxue was startled and quickly asked, Sister Lu Sei, what's wrong? What happened? Xian Ji is dead. How was that possible? Who was it? Who in the world killed my Xianji? Gong Qinshue is startled, and it's a long while before she finds her voice. Xianji is dead. How did he die? How could Xianji die? Jingqing Country's ghost city will soon fall into her hands. How could Xianji suddenly die? Something easily obtainable suddenly vanished into thin air. Such a blow almost made Gong Qinshue unable to maintain her noble and kind appearance. Xianji, that good for nothing. Even if they're going to die, why don't they wait until Jingqing Country is handed over to her before they die? Because she didn't want to make Lu Sei unhappy, she didn't even place spies around Xianji. Now that Xianji is dead, Jingqing Country's ghost city unexpectedly loses control in a split second. Gong Qinshue's chest heaves violently, but she forces herself to calm down. Big sister Lu Sei, in the end, who killed big brother Xianji? Who could be so cruel and merciless? You must take revenge for big brother Xianji. Lu Sei's ugly face became incomparably sinister at this time. The corpse soldiers standing below, affected by Lu Sei's emotions, also let out ghostly wails and wolf-like howls. Who killed my Xianji? I will definitely dismember his corpse into 10,000 pieces. Flap flap. A pigeon swooped down from the sky and landed on Gong Qinshue's shoulder. Gong Qinshue knows that this is news sent back by the informants she has placed in various places in Jingqing Country. Seeing the message, Gong Qinshue's pupils suddenly contracted. A cold and murderous voice slowly squeezed out of her mouth. Jun dash. Mu. Yen. As long as he saw the name and heard the name. It's as if Gong Qinshue could smell the strong stench emanating from her own body. That nauseating stench almost made her the laughingstock of the entire imperial palace. Chapter 484. However, there was already a flaw in her flawless image that could no longer be repaired. Even senior brother Jian Feng, who was infatuated with her, frowned and showed a disgusted expression when she smelled like a fox. How could Gong Qinshue, who was proud and arrogant and had never suffered the slightest grievance, tolerate this? And all this humiliation was brought upon her by that slut, Jun Mayan. But Gong Qinshue didn't want to think about it. If she hadn't instigated the raging inferno mercenary group to deal with Jun Mayan, how could this evil consequence have backfired on her? Gong Qinshue takes a deep breath, and immediately says anxiously and angrily, Big sister Lu Sei, I know who killed big brother Xianji. Who is it? It's the hot and powerful Enchantress of medicine in Tianyuan City, Jun Mayan. She is now in Jingqing Country's Wangjiang City. Big brother Xianji was killed by this vicious woman with her own hands. Jun Mayan. Jun Mayan. Lu Sei repeated the name over and over, gnashing her teeth. All right, I'll go to Wangjiang City now. Whoever killed my Xianji, I'll make them pay 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Jun Mayan, I want you to die without a burial. Seeing the burning killing intent in Lu Sei's eyes, Gong Qinshue slowly raised the corner of her mouth, revealing a cold smile. If Lu Sei, this foolish woman, is willing to go to Wangjiang Lu's ghost city, then it really couldn't be better. In this way, whether it's Jun Mayan, the ghost king Du Yu, or the ghost city, they can all be easily dealt with. Miss, you're back. When Ru Yan sees the handsome man and beautiful woman coming in from outside the door, she immediately smiles and greets them. Today, you went out with Jun Shang and had fun. Speaking halfway, Ru Yan's voice slowly quieted down. Because she can clearly see Di Mingju's unhappy expression. And when he heard her question, he looked at her coldly. Ru Yan shrinks her neck and looks at Mayan with a wronged expression. Mu Yan glances at Di Mingju. She finds it a little funny, but she holds back. She knew that this man had chased Xiaobao away today because he wanted to spend some alone time with her. But the result didn't seem to be ideal. Every time the two wanted to be alone, they would be interrupted by all sorts of people and things. If it's not a man coming up to strike up a conversation with Mayan, then it's a woman who wants to throw herself into Di Mingju's arms. Finally, with great difficulty, they boated in the middle of the lake, and the atmosphere became a little more romantic. In the end, an injured teenager falls from the sky. After Mayan uses drafts to cure his injuries, he kneels in front of Mayan and insists on selling himself to her. Di Mingju is so angry that his complexion changes on the spot, and he directly kicks the freshly healed youth into the lake. Hey, still angry? Mu Yan tugs at Di Mingju's sleeve. Don't scare my subordinates. Di Mingju's face darkens. He reaches out and grabs Mayan's waist, pulling her into his arms. Ben Jun really wants to lock you in the room, lest you go out and attract bees and butterflies. Hee, same to you. Mayan hooks up Di Mingju's chin, a smile that isn't a smile. Jun Shangdaren's ability to flirt with flowers and provoke grass is also very great, isn't it? Di Mingju immediately moves a little closer, his voice a little hoarse. Ben Jun doesn't mind Yan Yan locking me up, it's just you and me. Mu Yan, damn it, this man's skin was thicker and his moral integrity was getting more and more invincible. She was ashamed of her inferiority. Ru Yan, who was standing at the side, thought, Miss, son-in-law, you too are showing off your affection. Can you at least take care of me, your subordinate? Cough. Ruyan, where's little Bao? Chapter 485. Not back yet. Mayan's brows wrinkle all of a sudden. He only went to the ghost city to get the herbs. Why hasn't he come back yet? Could something have happened to him? Or could it be that the fat rabbit couldn't hold back and ate all the strange beasts in the ghost city? Mu Yan can't help but press her eyebrows, preparing to go to the ghost city to take a look. Suddenly, Mother! A crisp cry accompanied a small figure that flew into her arms like a cannonball. Xiao Bao! Mu Yan hugs the small and soft body tightly in her arms. Why did you only come back now? His voice was filled with urgency, but his heart, which had been hanging in suspense, returned to its original place. Xiao Bao rubs against Mayan's neck, then he raises his head. Nyangqin, there are bad people in the ghost city. Puff! A white furry head bursts out from Xiao Bao and Mu Yan's embrace. The fat rabbit let out a howl and shook its head to take credit. The bad guys were all chased away by me, Uncle Rabbit. Pooh! When did it become Uncle Rabbit? How could this wise and mighty divine beast be Lord Rabbit? Mu Yan doesn't have the time to take care of the fat rabbit's entanglement. She turns to look at Han Yi and Ing Mei. Both of them were covered in blood and looked battered and exhausted. Han Yi directly carries Ing Mei on his back. Mu Yan's brows suddenly wrinkle. Even Di Mingju's complexion slightly sinks. What happened in the end? In Mu Yan's bedroom, Han Yi gives a brief account of what happened in the ghost city. After saying that, Han Yi kneels down in front of Di Mingju with a thud. Lord, I know that Ing Mei disguised herself as a man and deceived Lord. According to the rules of the polar domain, she will be punished with capital punishment. If Jun Shang really wants to punish her, can this subordinate bear it for her? Ing Mei snaps his eyes wide open. Han Yi, what nonsense are you talking about? Di Mingju slightly narrows his eyes. There's not a trace of emotion on his handsome face. You should be very clear about the punishment for violating the polar domain's iron laws. This subordinate knows. Han Yi says without the slightest hesitation, but this subordinate is willing to bear the burden for Ing Mei. What kind of punishment would he receive? How could he not know? The few of them are Jun Shang's trusted aides and have sworn to be loyal to Jun Shang forever. They must not deceive or betray him in the slightest. Anyone who violated this rule would be stripped of their immortal bones and expelled from the celestial world, never to return. This kind of punishment was like hell to anyone in the Shushan continent. Han Yi is also afraid, but for the sake of Ing Mei, he bears this kind of punishment. He didn't feel the slightest bit of regret. Ing Mei sighed softly. A helpless smile appeared on her usually indifferent face. Han Yi, this guy, how could he be so stupid? But he was so stupid that it was adorable. Di Mingju condescendingly looks down at Han Yi, who has a face that looks as if he's facing death with equanimity. He unhurriedly says, that being the case, you can go stay in the purgatory pool for 3 more months. Han Yi hangs his head, this subordinate obeys. Purgatory pool, 3 months. June Shang. Han Yi looks up at Di Mingju in disbelief. Why only 3 more months in the purgatory pool? Wouldn't that be a capital punishment? At the side, Mu Yan finally couldn't stand it anymore and burst out laughing. Xiao Bao nestles in Mu Yan's arms and says in disgust, "Stupid Uncle Han Yi." Soon after, Han Yi comes to his senses. Jun Shang, you already knew that Ing Mei was a woman. Chapter 486. Han Yi is flabbergasted, staring blankly at Ing Mei. His face is suddenly smiling, and suddenly absent-minded. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, he wailed, "Oh, another 3 months. If I add it up, won't I have to stay in the purgatory pool for a year? Jun Shang, don't. Spare my life." After laughing and joking around, Han Yi says with a serious expression, "Jun Shang, now it seems that the ghost city might be under someone's control. Even that guy Gu Yu, the odds are against him." After a pause, he looks at Di Mingju, "Jun Shang, should we make a move?" Di Mingju's expression is cold and detached, not saying a word. Han Yi shakes his head, "I understand. They couldn't do anything. People from the Shushan continent coming to the Yenwu continent involves too much karma. This was especially so since a sovereign lord had descended with his true body. He had to be even more careful with his actions. Otherwise, it would very likely lead to terrible consequences. Although the ghost city was once founded by the polar domain, after so many years, the Yenwu continent's ghost city has long had nothing to do with the polar domain. Jun Shang has come to the Yenwu continent this time for Miss Mayan. He wouldn't care about anything else, nor should he care. The fate of Gu Yu and the ghost city has long been decided. They shouldn't have interfered. Han Yi says, "Jun Shang can rest assured, we won't interfere with the matters of the ghost city in the future. Now that the herbs have been collected, why don't we leave Wangjiang City as soon as possible? After all, they've killed a ghost king. If the ghost city finds out, they might not let it go." However, just as Han Ye's voice falls, he hears Mayan's languid and quiet voice. "Leave. The show has just begun. How can you leave now?" Han Yi looks at Mayan in surprise. Mu Yan slightly narrowed her eyes, the corners of her mouth still curled up into a smile, but her expression was indescribably cold. "When you said the name Xianji just now, I always felt that it sounded familiar. Now I finally remember." In her previous life, she had seen a feminine and treacherous man by Gong Qinshua's side. Beside the man stood a woman who was wrapped up tightly. At that time, Mu Yan seemed to have heard Gong Qinshuo call the man Xianji Gij and the woman Lu Se Jijie. Mu Yan couldn't hear it clearly. He also didn't know what kind of 2 characters Xianji and Lu Se were. But at that time, when Gong Qinshuo saw her, she immediately asked the 2 of them to leave. There was even a hint of panic on his face. After that, he tried many times to see if she recognized the 2 people. At that time, Mayan was so stupid that she didn't have the slightest bit of doubt towards Gong Qinxue. But now, hearing the name Xianji, she finally remembered. That Xianji Gige is the Ghost King of Wangjiang's Ghost City. And Wangjiang's Ghost City has long fallen into Gong Qinxue's hands. If you want to go back, then go back first. Mu Yan's gaze carelessly sweeps over Di Mingju and the others. You guys don't want to manage the Ghost City, but I want to manage it. How could she not care about anything related to Gong Qinxue? She didn't care about fate or cause and effect. She only knew that if she was reborn, she would definitely turn all of Gong Qinxue's ambitions and dreams into bubbles. She would definitely consign this woman to eternal damnation and make her pay with her blood. Nyangqin won't go back, Xiao Bao also won't go back. Xiao Bao hugs his Nyangqin, his big eyes full of earnestness. Xiao Bao will accompany Nyangqin. Saying that, he gives Di Mingju and the other two a disdainful look, waving his hand. You guys go. Chapter 487. After a long while, he slowly says, since Madam wants to manage it, Ben Jun will naturally accompany her. What's more, the Ghost City was created by my polar domain, so it's also related to me. How can I not manage it? Saying that, he looks at Han Yi. Since you don't want to manage it, it's useless to stay here. Go to the D Garden's purgatory pool and accept your punishment. Han Ye's eyes widen, he simply can't believe his ears. What the hell, he doesn't want to manage it. Isn't it because Jun Shang, as an immortal from the upper realm, can't get involved in the affairs of mortals? When he spoke just now, didn't Jun Shang acquiesce? Why did Miss Mayan just say that she wants to manage it, and you change your mind? Moreover, you sold him out so thoroughly. Jun Shang, where's your integrity? The point is, who did he provoke? Why is he always the one who gets hurt? The situation in the Ghost City is very strange. A Ghost King is clearly dead, but the entire Wangjiang Ghost City is still operating normally. It's as if it's not affected at all. Even the herbs that Mayan wants, as well as the gold coins from the special drafts auctions, have been delivered very promptly. There's one thing that Mayan is more concerned about. Magistrate Qin and the others, who stood by her side to protect her that day in the Ghost City, are nowhere to be seen these days. She asks the white-bearded Magistrate Liu, and he only says that they've been transferred away to perform some tasks. There's also an even more troublesome matter. Han Yi and the others have no way to contact the Ghost King, and they can't find any trace of him. As Mayan is thinking about how to destroy Gong Qinshue's invasion of the Ghost City, she receives an invitation. Ghost Wind Valley. Hearing this name, Ru Yan and Old Tao's complexion greatly changes. Even Yan Haotian and Feng Haitang show anxious expressions. Miss, you absolutely can't go to the Ghost Wind Valley. Ru Yan says loudly, although Old Tao and I haven't been there, we know that it's the Ghost City's forbidden area. Apart from the Ghost City's higher-ups, if anyone else goes in, they absolutely won't come out alive. Feng Haitang also says, I've also heard of the Ghost Wind Valley. In those days, there were 19 pre-celestials who attacked the Ghost Wind Valley together. 19 went in, but in the end, only one came out alive, and he even went mad. Miss, if you want to stop Gong Qinshue from controlling the Ghost City, there are plenty of ways. You absolutely don't need to take this kind of risk. What's more, that woman, Shi Lanling, is also in the Ghost Wind Valley. That woman's status in the Ghost City is so high, and she hates you so much, Mississippi. There's definitely a trap waiting for you in the Ghost Wind Valley. Listening to the anxious persuasion of the others. But Mayan's expression is languid and careless. She picked up the invitation and read it again. The content of the invitation was very simple. The Ghost City's Ghost Lord is seriously ill, so famous doctors from all over the world are invited to go to the Ghost Wind Valley to treat the Ghost Lord. If it's cured, the Ghost City will be seriously injured. And there are two invitees. One is Ghost City's Shixianzi, Shilonling, and the other is Huang Yao's King of Hell. Of course, Mu Yan knows that Shilonling inviting her is definitely not a good idea. However, she was not a patient person. Shilonling, this woman, had schemed against her time and time again. It really annoyed her. In addition, the invitation this time is to treat the Ghost Lord. She can just explore the reality of the Ghost City and Gong Qinchua's conspiracy. How could he not go? Chapter 488. Miss. This time, Ru Yan and the others are really anxious. Miss, we won't stop persuading you. You must take us with you. Mu Yan's attitude is resolute, and she directly drives them out. However, as soon as she closes the door and turns around, she is embraced into an embrace. The man's familiar breath hits her. Can Ben Jun go with Mu Yan? Mu Yan raises her head and squints at him. Can I stop you? This time, Di Mingju doesn't take the opportunity to take advantage of her. Instead, he gazes deeply at her, and slowly says, What wish do you want to achieve? Ben Jun can help you achieve it. What do you want to kill? Ben Jun can help you kill them. No matter what you want, even if it's the moon in the sky, Ben Jun will pluck it for you. But there's only one thing that I will never allow. Di Mingju grips her chin, forcing her to slowly raise her head. Mu Yan, you have to promise that you won't let yourself get hurt, and will never, ever disappear from my life. Mu Yan stares blankly at those blue eyes that are close at hand, feeling as if her soul is being sucked in. The man's resolute and decisive voice lingers in her ears like an oath and a spell. It makes her heart sink little by little, unable to extricate herself. After a long time, she comes back to her senses, and then slightly hooks up her lips into a smile. Di Mingju, this is my hatred. Of course, I have to take revenge on my own, and no one else is allowed to intervene. Not even you, understand? The man looked at her deeply, then lowered his head and kissed her nose dotingly. Ben Jun wouldn't dare to disobey Madam's order. Bastard, who's your madam? Can you stop calling me the more proficient you become? The Ghost Wind Valley is located at the junction of Huangyao and Jingqing. It doesn't belong to Huangyao, nor does it belong to Jingqing. In a strict sense, it doesn't even belong to the Ghost City. Because this is an incomparably gloomy, frightening, and mysterious place. For generations, only the Ghost City's Ghost King and above can safely enter and exit here. However, despite the Ghost Wind Valley being such a frightening place, there are still countless doctors and apothecaries who come to treat the Ghost Lord. The reason is that the Ghost City gives a reward that all those who study medicine and alchemy absolutely cannot refuse. Secret pill condensation technique. Thinking of this reward, the corners of Mu Yan's mouth couldn't help but curl up into a cynical smile. When Shilonling wrote this invitation, she believed that even if she knew it was a trap, she would still jump into it. It was probably because of this reward, right? Shilonling probably thought that she was still unable to concoct pills. Moreover, he wanted to obtain the core condensation mystic method no matter what. When Mu Yan arrived at the entrance of the Ghost Wind Valley, it just so happened that an old man with grizzled hair and beard was taking out an invitation card for the guards of the Ghost Wind Valley to check. Looking from the entrance, the Ghost Wind Valley was shrouded in fog. As he got closer, he could even feel the bone-chilling cold wind. As soon as Mayan approaches the entrance, she feels a vigilant gaze directed at her. The old man sized up Mu Yan and the other three, and then revealed a suspicious expression. Are you also the doctors who were invited to treat the Ghost King? Even though it was a question, the disdain in his eyes could not be concealed. It's really that Mayan, Di Mingju, Han Yi, and Ing Mei, none of them look like doctors. Di Mingju converges his breath, making people unconsciously ignore his existence. Han Yi and Ing Mei look like ordinary handsome young men. Chapter 489. Although she's beautiful, she's only an 18 or 19-year-old girl. How could she be a famous doctor or an apothecary? Such a person dares to come to the Ghost Wind Valley to treat the Ghost Lord. She also wants to snatch the secret method of core condensation. Isn't this a joke? Dr. Wang, please come in. After examining the old man's invitation, the guard respectfully returns it and makes a gesture of invitation. Dr. Wang takes back the invitation, but he doesn't go in immediately. Instead, he looks at Mu Yen sarcastically. He doesn't believe that there's anyone in this group who's qualified to treat the Ghost Lord. One should know that he's already considered young among the famous doctors in the Yanwu continent. But he was already in his 40s when he became famous. However, the next moment, Dr. Wang widens his eyes in shock. Because the beautiful girl who he thought was least likely to be a doctor actually takes out an invitation that's exactly the same as the one in his hand. How is this possible? An 18 or 19-year-old girl is actually a famous doctor invited by the Ghost City. While he's still in shock, he suddenly hears a soft, "huh," from the guard. "I'm sorry, Miss June, although there's no problem with your invitation, your name doesn't seem to be on the list of doctors I've recorded." Hearing the guard's words, Mu Yen raises her eyebrows in surprise. "Ha! I don't know where this country bumpkin came from, daring to pretend to be a senior doctor. What do they think the Ghost Wind Valley is? Do they think they can come in whenever they want? A bunch of idiots." The medicine boy next to Dr. Wang sees that his master doesn't like Mu Yan's group. Seeing that they've been denied by the guard, he immediately taunts loudly. Dr. Wang puts his hands behind his back and says with a haughty face, "This old man was wondering why the people of the Ghost City are so stupid to invite such a young and inexperienced girl to treat the Ghost Lord. It turns out that they're shameless imposters. How could they have an invitation? You should know that the people invited by the Ghost City this time are at least at the level of Xian Medical Pavilion's senior doctors," the medicine boy says as he looks at Mu Yen up and down. Seeing her flawless face, he can't help but reveal a lascivious smile. "Master, maybe this girl is a doctor's concubine and furnace. That's why she has an invitation, but her name isn't registered." Before he can finish his words, there's a sudden blur. 2 clapping sounds could be heard. 2 big slaps landed on his face. He screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood with broken teeth. Unbeknownst to him, Ing Mei had already appeared in front of him. The sharp blade was unsheathed and slowly rubbed against his neck. "Watch your mouth. Do you believe that I will cut off your tongue? Guard! Guard! What are you waiting for?" Dr. Wang suddenly came to his senses and immediately roared hysterically. This group of people forged invitations and pretended to be doctors. Now they're fighting in the Ghost Wind Valley. Don't you care? The faces of the guards turned cold. Only now did they react. Ing Mei had actually made a move in front of them. They couldn't even see Ing Mei's movements clearly. "Everyone, let's catch them. Hand him over to the King Yen Luo of Hell." With a loud shout, dozens of guards in the Ghost Wind Valley rushed out as if out of thin air. Each of them was at the peak of the earth rank or above. Chapter 490. Even if it's a pre-celestial expert, in the face of such a lineup, they certainly won't get any advantage. However, Dr. Wang and his medicine boy's triumphant expression hasn't fully blossomed on their faces when they suddenly freeze. Bang bang bang. From time to time, they hear the sound of fists hitting flesh, as well as men's screams of love. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, after a short time to drink a cup of tea. Those fiendish guards of the Ghost Wind Valley are lying on the ground, none of them can stand up. And there's only one person who has knocked them down. That black-clothed handsome youngster, Ing Mei. You, who are you people? The Ghost Wind Valley guard angrily questions. He also holds the signal flare in his hand. Didn't I tell you? I'm a doctor, invited to treat the Ghost Lord. Mu Yan slowly steps forward, smiling as she looks at the guards of the Ghost Wind Valley. Her beautiful face and bright smile make the guard's mind go into a trance for a moment. Then he immediately says in a loud voice, "No, impossible. The people invited to treat the Ghost Lord this time are all famous senior doctors and pharmacists in the Yanwu continent. You're just a little girl, how could you have such superb medical skills? You don't believe in my medical skills?" Mayan sneers and crooks her finger at Dr. Wang. "Why don't I demonstrate it to you on the spot?" At this moment, pure fear surges in Dr. Wang's heart. He turns around to run. However, he hasn't run 2 steps. As if he's being pulled by an invisible force. He can't help but fall back. His face shows a horrified expression. What did you do? Why can't I control my body? Mayan, who originally wanted to catch him by herself, turns to look at the man standing next to her. She can't help but curl up her lips into a smile. Seeing that he can't break free, Dr. Wang's face suddenly shows a vicious expression. Suddenly, he turns around. He raises his left hand high, clenches his fist, and a green light flashes. He shouts, "Go to hell." With a wave of his hand, green powder, accompanied by a fishy smell, diffuses out. But Dr. Wang also wails at the same time. His hand, which was holding the green powder, was broken at the wrist. The hand that fell to the ground was stained with blood and dirt, but it was still gently bouncing, looking especially terrifying. Dr. Wang held his broken hand and rolled on the ground, screaming like a pig being slaughtered. Mu Yan slowly walked forward, picked up the severed hand, and came to Dr. Wang. Those Ghost Wind Valley's guards were also so shocked by this scene that their faces turned green and pale. What do you want to do? Behaving atrociously in my Ghost Wind Valley, are you really not afraid of the Ghost City's kill order? Mu Yan tilted her head slightly and smiled, her voice pleasant to the ear. Didn't you question whether I have the ability to treat the Ghost Lord? I have to prove it to you. As she spoke, she grabbed Dr. Wang's severed hand. He picked up the bloody hand from the ground and placed it on the wound. What are you doing? Dr. Wang came to his senses and screamed in pain, "Don't do anything stupid. You were hit by my heart-piercing powder just now. If you don't have the antidote, you will die without a burial." Chapter 491. You must be kidding. Dr. Wang screamed, "My hand is broken. You cut it off. How can it be healed? I've been practicing medicine for decades, but I've never heard of such medical skills. Let me go." Mu Yan no longer pays attention to him. She aimed at the palm and wrist, took out a needle and thread, and began to suture. Without anesthesia and conscious, she directly sutured the tendons and flesh. This kind of pain was simply indescribable. The whole Ghost Wind Valley echoed with Dr. Wang's miserable screams like a pig being slaughtered. In the end, he didn't even have the strength to scream anymore. He only begged, "This old man was wrong, I was wrong, please let me go, it hurts, I really can't stand it, boo-hoo." At this moment, Mu Yan finally cut off the thread and showed a satisfied smile. "Okay, the suture is done." The Ghost Wind Valley's guards regained their senses one by one from their shocked faces. You can't be thinking that sewing severed limbs together like that is considered medical skill, right? Mu Yan slowly raised her eyebrows. She turned her hand, and a porcelain bottle appeared in her hand. She slowly poured the medicine in the porcelain bottle onto Dr. Wang's hand. Then, a shocking scene happened. They saw that the bloody wound on Dr. Wang's hand, which was sewn with thread, began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. Mu Yan pulled off the suture rope while pouring the draft. After a few breaths, there was only a centipede-like scar left on Dr. Wang's wrist. Dr. Wang widened his eyes and looked at his hand in disbelief. Then, he subconsciously moved his fingers. Ah, it moved. The fingers moved. How is it possible? How can a broken hand be sewn back together, and how can it be as good as before? Dr. Wang looked at Mu Yan in shock, and then looked at his hand. There seemed to be that terrible pain on his wrist. However, when he crooked his finger, he really felt the existence of his hand. Moreover, as time went by, the existence of this hand became stronger and stronger. It was as if it had never been looked at before. No, impossible, how can there be such medical skills in the world? Moreover, the one who used such medical skills was a young girl who was not even 20 years old. Dr. Wang raised his head and stared at Mu Yan. His voice was trembling. You. Who are you? Sir Shintu, you've come. Why are you standing here and not going in? Inside the Ghost Wind Valley, an old man cried out in surprise. He sees Magistrate Lu striding forward to welcome Mu Yan, repeatedly bowing to invite her in, his expression indescribably respectful and flattering. Shintu. The Ghost Wind Valley guards were all dumbfounded. What Sir Shintu meant, they all knew. However, the Ghost City hasn't had a Shinshu for a long time. Why did it suddenly appear now? And such a young girl at that. Magistrate Lu, who is this lady? Finally, one of the guards could not help but say, although she has an invitation, her name is not recorded here, so we dare not let her in. Idiot! Hearing this, Magistrate Lu wished he could slap this second pig-like teammate to death. Having Su Fu in the Ghost City is not enough. Chapter 492. Don't you know who she is? Magistrate Lu hatefully says, you guys don't know who the new Shinshu Darren of the Ghost City is, but you guys should have heard of the Enchantress of Medicine from Tianyuan City, the one who even the King of Hell can't take his life. The Enchantress. The first one to cry out in alarm was Dr. Wang. You're the Enchantress of Medicine from Tianyuan City who is said to be able to bring the dead back to life. Yes. Didn't this young lady's medical skills bring the dead back to life? Magistrate Lu ignored him and continued, even if you haven't heard of the Enchantress of Medicine, you should have heard of the godly tier alchemist, right? More than half of the top-notch drafts sold in the Ghost City today are refined by this Miss June. Have you eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? How dare you doubt her identity and block her from entering? If you delay the treatment of the Ghost Lord, I'm afraid that even if you have 10 lives, it won't be enough to compensate for it. As soon as he said that, Dr. Wang's body swayed and he fell to the ground with a thud. The faces of the Ghost Wind Valley's guards turned pale with fright as they knelt down. How could they have thought of that? The Enchantress of Medicine who could bring the dead back to life. The godly alchemist whose drafts can be sold at sky-high prices in the Ghost City. It was actually this young girl who looked no more than 18 or 19 years old. Listening to Magistrate Lu's incessant flattery, watching the guards continuously kowtow and beg for mercy. Mu Yan's expression is indifferent. She gently patted off the mud and blood on her hands. The bloodstains had dried up and could not be wiped off. She was about to give up. However, her hand was suddenly grabbed by someone. A soft and slightly damp handkerchief covered her hand and gently wiped it. Soon, the bloodstain was wiped clean. Mu Yan subconsciously raises her head to look at Di Mingju's cold and handsome face. Unexpectedly, she met the man's bottomless eyes. It was filled with his own reflection. Mayan's heart skips a beat, and she subconsciously withdraws her hand. Only after a long while does she manage to calm down. She coughed lightly to hide her beating heart. He looks at Magistrate Liu with a sneer. I just want to know one thing. This guard said that I'm not on the list of invited doctors. May I ask if the Ghost City doesn't want to cooperate with me from now on? Or, does the Ghost City have a problem with me? Since you have a problem with me, why don't you not force me to cooperate with you? After saying that, she turned around without any reluctance. Then I'll see you again. Oh, no, I mean never again. No, Miss June, it's not like that. Listen to me, this is a misunderstanding, really a misunderstanding. Mayan makes a move to leave, as if there's no room for maneuver this time. But at this moment, she heard a hoarse voice. Enchantress, please wait. Mu Yan pauses and slowly turns around. Not far away, a tightly wrapped person with a mask on his face slowly walked over. It was impossible to tell whether he was a man or a woman. As he gets closer, Mayan's entire heart starts to beat faster. Her body's instinctive reaction to danger made every nerve in her body tense up. This person was very strong. His cultivation was even higher than his own. Moreover, that kind of strength was not only because his cultivation had reached the peak of the innate realm. Furthermore, it was because his body was emitting a sinister and strange aura. This kind of aura was somewhat similar to the Poison Man Enforcer Li that Qian Qing had trained. However, he was far stronger than Protector Li. Chapter 493. Unlike the last time they met, the ugly white spots on Shi Lanling's face had disappeared without a trace. Her appearance was even more beautiful than before the white jade violet frost had dispersed. Seeing Mayan, Shi Lanling clenches her teeth, her eyes are filled with resentful murderous intent. However, Mu Yan didn't even bother to give her a single glance out of the corner of her eyes. Instead, she stared fixedly at the person who was tightly wrapped up and wearing a mask. This person slowly walked out of the Ghost Wind Valley. The cold and gloomy aura of the Ghost Wind Valley seemed to wrap around his body. This caused his originally sinister and treacherous aura to become even more uncomfortable. I've long heard of the Enchantress of Medicine's great name. I'm Ghost King Lu Se of Half Moon City's Ghost City. Lu Se. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly contract. Could it be the Lu Se that she had heard of in her previous life? She really didn't expect that Gong Qinshue's hand had already stretched so far. Not only Jingqing country, even the ghost city of Huangyao country has already become something in her pocket. From the looks of it, today's treatment of the Ghost King was probably a real trap. Mu Yan slowly narrows her eyes, subconsciously reaching out to grab something. If she was alone, she would not be afraid. But Xiao Bao was in her space. If anything were to happen to her, Xiao Bao would be exposed in front of others and be harmed. This was something she would never allow to happen. Her small hand, which she had stretched out in panic, was suddenly held by a warm and wide hand. The man's body slowly approaches, his deep voice faintly echoing in her ears. Don't be afraid, Yen Yen. I will always be by your side. As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Se's body suddenly stiffened, and she even took a step back. A pair of cold and severe eyes sweep over Mayan and Di Mingju. A look of shock and fear appeared on his face. Tightly pressed against his body, Mu Yan can clearly feel Di Mingju's body temperature, his heartbeat, as well as his unique aura. The last bit of uneasiness in his heart disappeared without a trace at this moment. Yes. She still has Di Mingju. She, Xiao Bao, and Di Mingju. After that, her thoughts suddenly stopped, and she was slightly vexed and dazed. Since when did she start to trust and rely on this man so much? She had clearly sworn that in this life, the most important things to her were only Xiaobao and revenge. Before her vengeance was over, she would never be tainted by such an unstable factor as feelings. Mayan takes a deep breath and breaks free from Di Mingju's hand, resuming her usual calm and languid self. Since it was her own hatred. Of course, she had to do it herself. The corner of his mouth hooks up into a shallow arc. Ghost City's long-awaited method is to repeatedly ignore my sincerity and play me for a fool. This one can't accept such an honor. I think whatever Shinshu, whatever cooperation, just forget about it in the future. After saying that, he pretended to leave. Lu Se didn't expect her to leave so decisively. He could not help but frown. Wait a moment. Lu Se promptly opens her mouth to call out to Mayan, today's matter, it was my Ghost Wind Valley that handled matters improperly, I ask Miss June to not take offense. Your name was accidentally deleted by Shishenzi. Shishenzi, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and apologize to Miss June, you want me to apologize to this, to her? Shi Lonling screamed in disbelief. However, Lu Se's cold gaze swept over. Chapter 494. She fiercely glares at Mu Yen, her face twisted with resentment, but in the end, she still clenches her teeth and says, It's my fault, Miss June, please don't take offense. Mayan looks at her with a smile that isn't a smile, I'm sorry, Shishenzi, I don't see the sincerity in your apology. Shi Lanling's face turns from white to green, green to purple, purple to black. In the end, she can only stiffen her body and salute Mayan, I was wrong, I ask Miss June to forgive me. The guards of the Ghost Wind Valley, as well as Dr. Wang and his medicine boy, all widened their eyes. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. These two, one is the Ghost King of Huang Yao Country's Ghost City, the other is the only one in the Ghost City who can do alchemy, Shishenzi. But now, for the sake of a young lady, he had to lower himself to apologize. This Enchantress, could it be that her medical skills were really that terrifying? The draft that she refined, could it really be that miraculous? Even the medicinal pills that Shishenzi refined could not compare to hers. Of course, Shi Lonling also felt the probing and pitiful gazes of the people around her. She has such a high and lofty status in the Ghost City. When and where has she ever suffered such humiliation? At this moment, he really wishes he could pounce over and dismember that slut June Mayan into 1,000 pieces. However, she had no choice but to endure it. Calm and unruffled, Mu Yen watches Shi Lanling's joke for a long time. Since Shishenzi apologizes so sincerely, then I'll accept it. It's just that Shishenzi made such a low-level mistake time and time again. It really makes me doubt. With your IQ, can you really refine pills to save people? Don't tell me that you messed up the main ingredients when you were refining the pills. Or let me make a bold guess. Because of Shishenzi's improper treatment, the Ghost King is now beyond cure. If that's the case, the Ghost King is really too pitiful. Mu Yan's words sound like a joke, but the guards of the Ghost Wind Valley uniformly looked towards Shi Lonling. A few of the guards had suspicious looks on their faces. Shi Lanling's face was already purple. After hearing these words, she felt her vision go black. Her body swayed, and she almost fainted. June Mayan, this slut. She must kill her immediately. After insulting Shi Lonling enough, Mayan enters the Ghost Wind Valley under the invitation of Ghost King Lu Se. The Nether Hall in the Ghost Wind Valley is divided into inner and outer halls. The seriously ill Ghost King is currently recuperating in the inner hall. All the doctors must stay in the inner hall. But the entourage is not allowed to enter the inner hall, so they can only stay in the outer hall. Lu Sei's pair of eyes behind the mask faintly looked towards Mayan. Miss June, surely you wouldn't mind. Mayan hasn't said anything yet, but Ing Mei and Han Yi are already anxiously saying, how can this be? Miss June, you are alone, if there is any danger. Hee, our Ghost Wind Valley sincerely invites Miss June to treat the Ghost Lord's illness. How could there be any danger here? Shirlanling sneers, her gaze drifting towards Mayan is brimming with disdain and provocation, or could it be that Miss June doesn't even have this little bit of courage, and needs someone to accompany her in order to dare to stay in the Ghost Wind Valley? Mayan slightly raises her long eyebrows, stopping Han Yi and the others from protesting. What was to come would come. Running away and retreating was not her style. She really wants to see why Shirlanling and Lu Sei insist on separating her and Di Mingju's trio. In the end, what do they want to do? Chapter 495. However, this glance makes her heart sink slightly. Because this is the first time she looks at Di Mingju. But Di Mingju is looking at another woman, Shirlanling. The rooms that the Ghost Wind Valley provides for doctors can be said to be very luxurious. The furnishings inside are incomparably extravagant, everything that should be there is there. Every room was also equipped with 4 beautiful, witty, and intelligent little girls. Mu Yen waves her hand to dismiss them. After making sure that there's no one around to spy on them, she flashes into the space. Nyangqin. Xiao Bao throws himself into her arms, his little raised face full of attachment. Nyangqin, Xiao Bao has been cultivating properly. The fat rabbit also hops a couple of times, letting out a howl. I've also been cultivating properly. Mu Yan reveals a soft smile, patting Xiao Bao's head, and then the fat rabbit. Nyangqin is going to refine an elixir now. Keep an eye on it for Nyangqin, and if anyone comes near, alert Nyangqin. Xiao Bao nods heavily. Holding the fat rabbit, he sits next to Mu Yan, but his attention is completely focused outside the space. Mu Yan takes out the furnace and ignites the pill fire. This time, she wants to refine an elixir that can restrain the yin energy in the Ghost Wind Valley. From the moment she entered the Ghost Wind Valley, she felt strands of cold yin energy eroding her veins. It might be nothing for a short period of time, but after a long time. If the yin energy becomes a bit stronger, she's afraid that it will have a bad effect on her. Once she absorbs too much yin energy, the space will also be nibbled away by the yin energy. Of course, Mu Yan won't allow such a thing to happen. The sound of the zither slowly rises, and the pill fire in the furnace burns even more vigorously. After a long time, 6 elixirs finally take shape. It's different from the last elixir that spread its fragrance for thousands of miles and alarmed countless creatures. The 6 elixirs this time are very ordinary. Mu Yan gives one each to Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit. She then swallows one herself. Xiao Bao obediently swallows the elixir, then looks at Mu Yan. He hesitates for a moment before saying, Nyangqin, are you unhappy? Mu Yan stares blankly. She's unhappy. Why not? Just because Di Mingju saw another woman. She frowned, stroked little Bao's head, and pulled out a smile. Baby, don't worry, mother isn't unhappy. I'm just wondering if I should give Han Yi and Ing Mei an elixir as well. Hearing this, little Bao immediately nodded. Yes. Xiao Bao feels that after eating the medicinal pill, my body no longer feels cold and uncomfortable. Mother is so amazing. Xiao Bao's Nyangqin is so awesome was purely because of his unwarranted worship and trust towards Mayan. However, if other people in the Ghost Wind Valley knew about this kind of medicinal pill, they would probably be so shocked that their jaws would drop. After all, what was the most frightening thing about the Ghost Wind Valley? It wasn't the powerful guards inside, but the poison smog that could corrode one's lungs. Without the corresponding antidote, just inhaling a certain amount of poison smog would cause one's entire body to go limp and unable to resist. This was also the reason why even innate realm experts could enter the Ghost Wind Valley. They might not even be able to get out of here alive. The poison smog of the Ghost Wind Valley has existed for hundreds of years, and it has also been studied for hundreds of years. However, no one outside of the Ghost City has ever been able to crack it. But at this very moment, Mayan was able to refine an elixir that could restrain the poison smog, just based on the poison smog that her body came in contact with. Chapter 496. Mu Yan hesitated for a while, but still quietly left the room and headed out of the hole. At this time, the sky was completely dark. The door to the room was gently pushed open, but it was dark and empty inside. Di Mingju isn't in the room. Mu Yan frowned slightly. At this hour, if Di Mingju isn't in the room, where would he go? However, since he's not here, she doesn't stay any longer. She turns around and heads towards Yingmei and Han Ye's room. In fact, she also knows that Di Mingju's body is special. Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog, he probably did not care about it at all. However, before she could go out, suddenly, footsteps and voices came from outside the door. Hearing the familiar voice, Mu Yan stopped in his tracks and subconsciously hid behind the screen. "Emperor, don't walk so fast. Lanling can't keep up with you." The door to the room was pushed open and the candle was lit. Then, Shi Lanling's coquettish voice, which sounded like she was pinching her throat, clearly came from the room. Mu Yan subconsciously clenched her fists and pursed her lips into a line. It wasn't because of Shi Lanling's affected voice. Instead, she hears another familiar breathing and footsteps. That's Di Mingju's. Her figure instantly became faintly discernible. His aura was completely restrained in the space. If there were no energy fluctuations, no one would be able to detect her presence if they didn't look carefully. Mayan tilts her body slightly to the side and looks through the gap of the carved and hollowed-out wooden screen. He could vaguely see the figures of a man and a woman. Di Mingju sits on a chair, slowly turning the teacup in his hand. Under the candlelight, his handsome and elegant face appeared to be dazzling and unattainable. Shi Lanling was standing not far away, staring at his face in a daze. It was as if it longed to get closer, but was afraid to do so. "Emperor Di, have you considered the matter that Lanling suggested to you just now?" Di Mingju looks at the teacup in his hand, his expression cold and detached. He doesn't answer. Shi Lanling seemed to be completely unaware of his coldness. She continued to stare at him foolishly and said, "Di Jun, you're not a person from the Yanwu continent. I'm afraid you should be from that Shuzhen continent that everyone yearns for, right? Everything in this Yanwu continent, whether it's people or objects, Di Jun naturally wouldn't put them in your eyes." Step by step, she slowly approaches Di Mingju. The pressure from the man's body made it hard for her to breathe. But it also makes her more and more amazed, infatuated, and longing for it. Di Jun must have come to the Yanwu continent to ask for something. That Jun Mayan is merely a mortal woman who has a child and has long lost her innocence. However, the emperor condescends to keep her by his side. Presumably, it's because that woman has something that the emperor desires, right? His heart seemed to be squeezed tightly in an instant. Mayan stares unblinkingly at the man's expression. However, the man's expression did not change at all. It was as if she had heard something unimportant. Then, he casually looked at Shi Lanling. "Oh. Then tell me, what is Ben Jun's scheme?" Hearing Di Mingju's question, Shi Lanling's eyes immediately brightened. An ecstatic look flashed across his face. What Lu Sei said was right. For such a powerful man to want a broken shoe like Jun Mayan, it's really because he's plotting something from her. Moreover, she also knows that the bastard simply isn't Deming Jews. Chapter 497. If that's the case, Jun simply doesn't really like Mayan. He just wanted to use her. Lanling suppressed the surging desire in her heart, and the expression on her face became more and more coquettish. Her skin was covered with white spots just a few days ago. At this moment, however, it had become fair and transparent, like a fine piece of jade. However, upon closer inspection, one would discover that her skin was so thin that it seemed as if it would break at any moment. It was sparkling and translucent, and it was somewhat unusual. Jun, the reason why you value Jun Mayan so much should be because she has a pre-celestial holy body that's rarely seen in 10,000 years, right? Cultivating yin-yang dual cultivation with such a woman will be several times more effective, be it in terms of cultivation or healing. Even if Jun Mayan has already lost her purity and no longer has a purine constitution, she is still a rare furnace in this world. Emperor, do you think Lanling is right? Deming Ju slowly raises his head, his eyes faint. You only know this. Lanling stares blankly, not understanding what Deming Ju's words mean. Then she heard the man's cold voice, or, should I ask, who told you these words? Who planted the golden silkworm goo in your body? Lanling's expression changed. She forced herself to be calm and said, what is the Emperor Lord saying? Lanling doesn't understand. Lanling represents Ghost City and hopes to cooperate with Jun. Dash. His throat was clutched by a steel-like hand, tightening bit by bit. The air in his body was squeezed out bit by bit. Lanling's complexion turned green and purple, her eyes filled with panic and fear. Emperor, spare my life. It's King of Hell Lu say, let me. His throat was released, and a large amount of cold air was poured into his throat. Lanling coughed violently. At this very moment, besides adoration, there's also a bit of fear in her eyes as she looks at Deming Ju. Trembling with fear, she says, Jun, it was Ghost King Lu Sei who sent me to find you. I hope that you can cooperate with the Ghost City. As long as you don't stop and don't intervene in what happens next, all of the Ghost City's resources will be at your disposal. Whatever you want to find in the Yenwu continent, the Ghost City can find it for you. Ghost King also guaranteed that as long as she sits on the throne of the Ghost King, she will be even more respectful to you than Guyu. In fact, Lanling said, blushing slightly. He slowly reached out and took off his coat. Her snow-jade-like shoulders, half-covered breasts, and her lithe body, which was only wearing a thin inner garment, were exposed. In fact, if you want Lanling is willing to offer my body to you. Although Lanling doesn't have the innate saint physique, she has the rare heavenly female physique. Moreover, compared to Jun Mayan, Lanling is still a virgin. If the Emperor is willing, Lanling is willing to devote myself to you. Even if it's as a slave or a concubine, or even as a cauldron, as long as it's for the Emperor, Lanling is willing. Saying that, she shyly and expectantly looks at Deming Ju, her eyes filled with deep affection. The man in front of her was like a god, aloof and incomparably handsome. Even in the cultivation continent, such a man would surely be supreme. How could a small Yenwu continent hold Lanling's ambition? As long as she could dedicate herself to such a man, even if she had to be a slave, a concubine, or even a cauldron, so what? She can follow him, leave the Yenwu continent, and henceforth become incomparably noble. That was the life that belonged to her. Chapter 498. Lanling's heart is getting hotter and hotter. Slowly, with a seductive gesture, she put her hand in front of her chest. Little by little, she pulls off her clothes. until the snow-white, alluring body is revealed under the flickering candlelight. Di-jun, Lanling is ready for you to pick. Don't you want it, Di-jun? She uses the softest voice to say the most sticky and coquettish words, step by step walking towards Di Mingju. The man's gaze on her body doesn't fluctuate in the slightest. It's like looking at a dead thing, a pile of trash. Sure, Lanling's heart sinks, then she tries even harder to twist her delicate body, taking off the remaining clothes on her body bit by bit. Your Majesty, let Lanling serve you. In the darkness, Mayan's expression turns a little cold. Her heart, which was originally opening up bit by bit because of Di Mingju's protection and companionship, is once again sealed up at this moment. It's like a thick layer of ice has condensed on the outside, never to be opened to anyone again. Only the strands of pain in her heart, like it's being cut by a knife, reminds her. Once, she was almost moved by this man, moved by emotions. Mayan's mind is completely calm, thinking about how she should quietly get away when the two of them are deep in passion. But at this moment, there's the sound of a violent impact. Mayan stares blankly. Looking out through the gap in the screen, she sees the two people who should be embracing each other intimately. Right now, only Di Mingju is left standing in the room. And Shi Lanling's entire body has already flown out, smashing through the door and landing heavily outside the room. The violent noise wakes up the guests and guards in the outer hall. Everyone follows the sound and comes over, only to see a naked Shi Lanling lying in the grass, her face lifeless and incredulous. What happened? Ah! This, isn't this Shi Shenzi? Oh my, how could Shi Shenzi not even wear a single piece of clothing? And just now, didn't she fly out of that room? Along with all kinds of voices, there's also those gazes that fall on her naked body, whether it's passion, or disgust, or gloating. Everything caused her mind to go blank, and she was unable to think. Why? Why did things turn out like this? Wasn't she offering herself to Di Mingju just now? Wasn't she about to successfully seduce this man? Why did she fall from heaven to hell in the blink of an eye? My lord, what happened? Han Yi and Ing Mei hurriedly rush over. Seeing Shi Lanling lying naked in front of Di Mingju's door, they reveal a disgusted expression. Why is it this woman again? Han Yi snappily says, Shi Shenzi, don't you have any shame? My family's Jun Shang has long said that he doesn't fancy you. Moreover, my family's Jun Shang already has a wife. You repeatedly run over to offer yourself as a pillow, aren't you a bit too thick-skinned? Ah, I didn't expect that Shi Shenzi, who is as noble and pure as a lotus on the surface, is actually such a debauched person in private. TSK. She offered herself as a pillow, yet she was kicked out. If this matter were to spread, I'm afraid that Fairy Shi's reputation in the future, what Shi Shenzi? Bah! What a shameless whore! In the past, Shi Lanling used her holy and noble identity to guide public opinion and destroy many women she disliked. Chapter 499. However, she had never imagined that one day, she would become the target of public criticism. Ah! Frantic screams accompanied Shi Lanling's frantic dash as she covered her face and gradually faded into the distance. After today, Shi Shenzi, who was once sought after by everyone, can be considered to have been completely pulled down from the altar. Everyone laughed and left. The door was slowly closed, and the candles in the room were extinguished. The room fell into endless darkness and silence. Mu Yan's figure slowly withdraws from the space, quietly arriving at the open window. Just as she was about to jump out of the window and leave, a scorching aura suddenly wrapped around her. His steel-like arms wrapped around her waist and restrained her tightly. The man's deep voice rang in his ears, "Since Mu Yan is here, how can he bear to leave so quickly? Muyan's breathing stagnates, but her expression soon returns to normal, and she slowly turns around. When did the Lord discover that I was here? Di Mingju's brows wrinkle, there's obvious displeasure in his eyes. I said, call me by my name. Muyan doesn't want to compete with him in this aspect, so she readily follows his advice and calls out, Di Mingju. You hid your aura very well. I didn't notice it at first. It was only when Shirlanling took off her clothes that I sensed the fluctuation of your aura. Di Mingju gently strokes her hair, but Muyan tilts her head to avoid it. This is a medicinal pill that I refined. It can restrain the yin qi in the Ghost Wind Valley. Muyan doesn't pay attention to Di Mingju's stunned expression. She spreads out her palm, and 3 elixirs appear in her palm. I've come to deliver elixirs to you, Ying Mei, and Han Yi. But I think that maybe you don't need them. No, Benju needs it. Di Mingju's brows are tinged with a trace of indescribable gentleness. As long as it's something that Muyan gives, Benju wants it all. As he said that, he directly swallowed a pill in Muyan's hand. When the man's warm lips touch her palm, Muyan's heart can't help but jump. She quickly withdrew her hand and placed the other 2 pills on the table. If there's nothing else, I'll head back first. Saying that, she breaks free from Di Mingju's embrace, and turns around to leave. However, just as she takes a step forward, Di Mingju suddenly pulls her back. Muyan, are you angry? The man's deep voice rang in her ears. Muyan stares blankly for a moment, then says with a smile that isn't a smile, why should I be angry? Or are you jealous? Jealous of your big head? Muyan finally got angry. She fiercely kicked the man's body. At the same time, her body was like a swimming fish. She broke free from the man's embrace and quickly flew out of the door. His body was about to rush out of the door. Suddenly, the door slammed shut in front of her eyes. Then, his body was pressed tightly against the tightly shut door by a tall and hot body. Di Mingju's handsome face is very close. The icy blue eyes seem to be burning with blazing flames, wanting to devour her completely. His hot breath gently blew on her lips and face, making her whole body heat up. Di Mingju, let go. I won't. Di Mingju leans down and slowly says, Muyan, I've said it before, in this lifetime, I will never let go of your hand. Muyan sneered and said, because I have something to gain from it. What pre-celestial holy body, that can allow you to quickly. Before she could finish speaking, Di Mingju's lips pressed down, completely swallowing her voice. Chapter 500. A broad palm presses the back of her head, forcing her closer to him, unable to escape. But his movements are so gentle, so careful, as if he's protecting a treasure. It also makes Muyan sink a little, unable to extricate herself. After a long time, the lips part. Muyan's lips are slightly red and swollen, all the more alluring. The silver threads sticking to the corners of her lips make the charming and ambiguous atmosphere in the room seem like someone has added a fire. Little heartless. Di Mingju's voice is unreasonably hoarse. The broad palm grabs her small hand and slowly moves down, finally pressing down on a hard and scorching place. Muyan is so startled that she almost jumps up. She wants to break free from the man's hand, but she's shackled, unable to leave. As a result, she intuitively feels the man's dagger-drawn lust. Heartless woman, if I really just want your body, why would I have to endure so much? Muyan's face is so red that it's almost dripping water. But it's as if someone has reignited a fire in her heart, melting the ice that has just been built up a little bit. You let go first. Di Mingju presses her hand tighter, his voice is like a hoarse whisper, with a trace of pleading, Muyan, Benjun won't touch you before you're willing, but you're responsible for extinguishing the fire that you've lit. An hour later, Ming-ju embraces the sleeping girl in his arms, lowering his head to gently kiss her between the eyebrows. He gets up and goes to the outer room, lightly knocking on the edge of the table. Jun Shang. Han Yi and Ing Mei quickly come over from next door, kneeling in front of him. Ming-ju's expression appears incomparably cold in the darkness. Lan-ling has the gold silkworm goo on her. Gold silkworm goo. Han Yi and Ing Mei suddenly raise their heads, looking shocked. Isn't that the goo that only the people of Tianyi men can use? Ing Mei frowns. Jun Shang, you're saying that there are people of Tianyi men in this Ghost Wind Valley. Why would people of Tianyi men come to the Yanwu continent? Could it be? Han Yi clenches his teeth, saying, could it be that someone from Tianyi men has discovered that the Shin musicians are in the Yanwu continent? Someone even knows that Miss June is the successor of the Shin musician. When the Shin musician inheritance was triggered by Mayan, it alarmed the Shushan continent, but it was covered up by Ming-ju. However, the remodeling of Mayan's moon spirit root and the ringing of the ghost bell in the Shin musician's ruins in the end still attracted the attention of Tianyi men and all the sects of the Shushan continent. No one knows better than Ming-ju how much those old farts of the Shushan continent loathe the Shin musicians, how much they dread them, and how much they fear them. The current Mu Yan was still so weak. If these people knew of Mu Yan's existence, even Ming-ju might not be able to protect her. Ming-ju's hands slowly clench and loosen. After leaving the Ghost Wind Valley, I will return to the Shushan continent. My lord. Han Yi anxiously says, your real body is now in the Yanwu continent. When you return to the Shushan continent, you won't even have a tenth of your strength. It's too dangerous to deal with matters related to the Shin musicians. It would be better. There's no need to say any more. Ming-ju's gaze sweeps over the inner room, his eyes becoming indescribably gentle. In any case, I will not allow anyone to hurt Mayan. Chapter 501. The Xian division led by Ing Mei is the fastest knife in the polar domain, and it's a knife hidden in the dark. Han Yi and Ing Mei look at each other and finally bow, as you bid, Jun Shang. For the next 3 days, Mu Yan hides in the space to refine pills. She just doesn't want to see Ming-ju. That night, whenever Mu Yan thinks about it, it's like her whole body is ignited. That shameless pervert, bastard. A few soft pleading words really made her give up her principles and resistance. Although it didn't go to the end, but, Madam Enchantress, don't you think it's too strange? Dr. Wang's question pulls Mu Yan's mind back from that charming night. We were clearly invited to treat the Ghost Lord, but 3 days have passed, and we haven't even seen the sick Ghost Lord's face. Until now, we don't even know what illness the Ghost Lord has. Don't you think it's too strange? Ever since that day when Mu Yan ruthlessly taught him a lesson and awed him by her godly medical skills, Dr. Wang has always been respectful and afraid of Mu Yan. Occasionally, he would even shamelessly ask Mu Yan questions about medical skills. As time goes by, Dr. Wang simply prostrates himself in admiration of Mu Yan's knowledge and strength. After these 3 days, apart from Mu Yan, the other doctors finally realize that something is wrong. They've been invited here for 3 days, and during these 3 days, the Ghost Wind Valley has been serving them comfortably, making them unable to find any fault. But the problem is, they're not here to enjoy, but to treat a disease. As they're talking, a group of ghost envoys wearing the Ghost Wind Valley's uniforms suddenly come in. In the blink of an eye, they surround Mu Yan and Dr. Wang. The leader of the ghost envoys condescendingly looks at the two, his expression arrogant and compassionate. Dr. Jun, Dr. Wang, the Ghost Lord invites you. He wants us to go over now. Dr. Wang shows a surprised expression. Don't tell me he wants us to treat the Ghost Lord. The leader of the ghost envoys opens his mouth, revealing a malicious smile. Exactly, so the two doctors, please. But it's already dark, and we're going to rest soon. Dr. Wong immediately retorted, the most important thing for a doctor to do is to focus. Even if we go there now, we won't be able to diagnose and save the patient. Hee, that's not up to you. The ghost messenger sneered in disdain, and then his gaze became increasingly cold. Haven't the two of you heard of a saying? If the king of hell wants you dead by midnight, he won't let you live until the 5th. Since our king of hell has asked you to go and treat the patient now, you must go now. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. As soon as he finished speaking, dozens of ghost constables unsheathed their weapons. The cold gleam of their blades accompanied the increasingly dense and cold air in the room as they slowly approached Dr. Wong and Mu Yen. Dr. Wong was so shocked that he fell from his seat and sat on the ground. Mu Yen, however, faintly hooks up the corners of her lips. The ghost envoy glanced at Mu Yen and sneered, Madam Enchantress, I know that your subordinates are very powerful, but the door to the inner hall is already closed. Even if they wanted to come in, they wouldn't be able to. Just give up. Chapter 502. The ghost messenger's face revealed a bit of suspicion, then he immediately sneered and waved his hand to have the two people take them away. Outside the house, Mu Yen heard waves of panicked and angry voices coming from the entire inner hall. Impudent! I am a doctor invited by your ghost king to treat your ghost king. How dare you be so rude and impudent? Do you know who I am? How dare you attack me? Ah! Let me go, where are you taking me? The chaotic scene, the angry curses and screams, caused panic to spread throughout the entire Ghost Wind Valley. However, the doctor's resistance was futile. The actions of the ghost messengers were very rough and cruel, completely lacking the attentive and careful treatment they had towards these doctors a few days ago. This caused a sentence to flash through Mu Yan's mind. The dagger was revealed. In these 3 days, presumably Lu Se and Shi Lanling were making some sort of preparation, so they had been biding their time. Now that the preparations were complete, they no longer needed to disguise themselves and revealed their true colors. Soon, all the doctors were escorted by the ghost envoys to a spacious hall. There were no seriously ill ghost kings in the hall. Only Yama King Lu Se, whose entire body was wrapped up tightly, and Shi Lanling, who wore a gorgeous dress and heavy makeup, sat on the main seats. The surroundings of the hall were filled with ghost envoys dressed in uniforms. Compared to the ghost envoys in the ghost city, the cultivation of these ghost envoys is a whole level higher. As they got closer, they could smell the thick scent of blood coming from their bodies. It proved how many lives they had stained their hands. More than 10 highly respected doctors were pushed into the hall like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Everyone's faces were filled with unease, but they kept quiet out of fear, not daring to speak. At this moment, many people were already regretting in their hearts. He shouldn't have risked his life in the Ghost Wind Valley for the core condensation secret technique. Yama, what are you doing? Suddenly, a loud and clear voice rang out, breaking the silence. We are the doctors that you have personally invited to treat the Ghost King, not criminals. Don't tell me this is how you Ghost City treats your guests. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Seeing who the person who spoke was, many people showed expressions of relief. So Dr. Song is here. That's great. Yes, yes. Dr. Song is a person of virtue and prestige, who in the entire Yanwu continent wouldn't regard him highly. Even the royal family of Jingqing country has to respectfully invite him over. The one speaking is Jingqing country's Changshu Hall, Dr. Song. He is extremely famous in Yanwu continent, and can be said to be second only to godly Dr. Qian Qing. Very soon, another white-haired old man with a pair of awkward eyes spoke up. What nonsense! Where's the Ghost King? Where is it? This time, the Ghost King must give us a reasonable explanation. Otherwise, we will not let this matter rest. This old man wants to report this to His Majesty and let His Majesty personally make the decision for me. Seeing the old man speak, someone else exclaimed, "Ah! That's Huang Yao Country's national healer, Dr. Du. Ha, the Ghost City is in trouble this time. Dr. Du is Huang Yao Country's Emperor's imperial physician. Many of the drafts in Huang Yao Country's Ghost City are refined by him. Moreover, Dr. Du has a violent temper. If you provoke him, then this time, the Ghost City will suffer." Then, one after another, virtuous and respectable doctors stood up and condemned Lu Sei and Shi Lonling. Chapter 503. At the head of the table, Lu Sei's face was hidden behind a mask, and no expression could be seen. Only a pair of eyes, without a trace of warmth, coldly swept over everyone below. Shi Lonling, who is sitting next to her, is glaring at Mayan. A pair of devilish eyes, outlined by thick makeup, exuded intense hatred and excitement. The only one with a leisurely expression in the entire audience was probably Mu Yan alone. While everyone was arguing, she openly found a place to sit down, poured herself a cup of tea, and slowly drank it. Looking at her leisurely appearance, Shi Lonling remembered the embarrassment she made 3 days ago. The evil fire in her heart burned crazily, making her almost unable to control herself from pouncing over and tearing Mu Yan's face to pieces. But thinking about what was about to happen, Shi Lonling calmed down and revealed a sinister smile. "All right, let's not talk nonsense now." Dr. Song raised his hand and gestured for everyone to quiet down. Then, he turned his sharp gaze towards Lu Sei. "Where is the Ghost King? Didn't you tell us to treat the Ghost King?" "That's right, after you cure the Ghost King, you have to hand over the core condensation secret technique according to the agreement. If you dare to deceive us, don't blame this old man for being impolite. Dr. Du coldly says, when the time comes, we will unite all the countries to boycott the Ghost City, and make you completely disappear from the Yanwu continent. Ha ha ha, boycott the Ghost City. With trash like you." Lu Sei finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. The ghost envoys surrounding the doctors all revealed looks of ridicule and disdain. Seeing this, Dr. Du and Dr. Song's faces alternated between green and white. Good, you actually dare to fool us like this. Let's wait and see. Everyone, since the Ghost City doesn't have any sincerity, what are we still doing here? Let's go." Dr. Du waved his hand, and the other doctors immediately responded. Everyone was about to leave in anger. However, just as they reached the door, 2 ghost servants blocked their way. "Get lost. Don't block my path." Dr. Song pushed out his palm, and a powerful Xian Qi that contained an intense killing intent filled the air. Dr. Song, who looked like a scholar on the outside, actually had the cultivation of heaven stage. Therefore, there was no fear on his face. He also didn't think that 2 mere ghost messengers could block his way. However, in the face of such an attack, the 2 ghost servants blocking the door. However, there was not the slightest hint of fear on his face. Instead, he revealed a mocking smile. Suddenly, a huge palm leaf fan appeared in one of the ghost envoy's hands. He slapped Physician Song forcefully. A bone-chilling cold wind blew against his face. Dr. Song only felt that the profound qi that he pushed out with his palm was completely swallowed up by this Yin wind in an instant. Then, there were a few loud bangs. One by one, the doctors who rushed to the door were kicked into the air by the ghost envoys. He landed heavily in the hall. For a moment, the entire hall was filled with cries of anguish. Dr. Song stood up from the ground, blood seeping out from the corner of his mouth. He fiercely glared at Lu Se, poison smog. Lu Se, how dare you use poison smog on us? You deranged beast, what are you trying to do? Daring to make a move against so many doctors in the Ghost Wind Valley, aren't you afraid of being hunted down by all the martial artists? Lu Se slowly stood up from her seat and pulled with her hand. Chapter 504. Many people revealed expressions of horror and disgust when they saw her face. Even Mayan stares blankly. Even she didn't expect that Lu Se would actually be a woman, and that her true appearance would actually be like this. Lu Se leisurely and contentedly enjoyed their horrified expressions. Then, he walked step by step towards Dr. Song and Dr. Du. You want to leave so soon? What's the rush? Don't you want to heal the Ghost King? Don't you want the core condensation secret skill? Dr. Song gritted his teeth. Lu Se, don't go too far. Actually, you guys don't have the core condensation secret skill, do you? It was just a gimmick to trick us into coming here. What are you trying to do? My ghost city naturally has the secret skill of pill condensation. Saying this, Lu Se glanced at Shi Lonling. Shi Xianzi is the best proof. Everyone turned to look at Shi Lonling. Not bad. Everyone knew that Shi Lonling could refine pills. However, was Shi Lonling really willing to hand over the pill condensation technique? Shi Lonling stood up, her heavily made-up face revealing a flamboyant smile. Of course, as long as you cure the Ghost King, Lonling is willing to hand over the core condensation secret technique. I believe that everyone who has come here must really want this core condensation secret method. Saying that, her gaze sweeps over Mu Yen. Seeing that she was still unmoved, he sneered, "Slut, keep pretending. You want to learn alchemy? You must be crazy. Otherwise, why would he rush to the Ghost Wind Valley? However, you will never have the chance. Since the Ghost City is really willing to use the secret skill of pill condensation as a reward, why are we still delaying? Hurry up and take us to treat the Ghost Lord." At this moment, even Dr. Song and Dr. Duke seemed to have forgotten the unpleasantness from before as their eyes burned with passion. That was the core condensation secret technique. The Yenwu continent is so big, who knows how many practitioners, doctors, and alchemists there are. But those who could concoct pills were few and far between. Whoever could master the method of alchemy would be able to stand at the peak of the medical world and become a superior person. He even found a shortcut to transcending the tribulation and ascending. This was also the reason why Dr. Song and the others rushed over to treat the Ghost Lord even though they knew that the Ghost Wind Valley was dangerous. Lu Se, however, sneered and said unhurriedly, "There's no hurry. Before I let you treat the Ghost Lord, I still want to see if you have the real ability to treat the Ghost Lord. After all, the Ghost Lord is currently the most supreme person in our Ghost City. Not just any doctor is qualified to treat him." Dr. Song said anxiously, "If you don't let us treat the Ghost King, how do you know if we are qualified or not?" "It's very simple." Lu Se looks around, and her gaze finally falls on Mayan. Mu Yen only feels a strong killing intent sweep over her body. They only heard Lu Se continue, "As long as you can win against Shi Lonling and Shi Xianzi in terms of medicinal pills, then you will have the qualifications to treat the Ghost Lord's illness. In this case, I will naturally let you in to treat the Ghost Lord's illness. I beat Shi Xianzi." Hearing this condition, many doctors frowned. However, there were also a few doctors, such as Dr. Song and Dr. Du, who revealed arrogant expressions. Although Shi Lonling was very famous, in terms of medical skills, they believed that they were much better than this little girl. Chapter 505. Hee hee. Shi Lonling sneers. Standing at the head of the table, she condescendingly looks down at them. "Dr. Song, Dr. Du, I'm afraid you didn't hear it clearly. The competition that the Ghost King is talking about is for you to compete with me in alchemy. As she says that, she sweeps Mayan with a venomous and arrogant gaze. I forgot to tell you, the Ghost Lord's illness can't be cured by ordinary drafts and medical skills. Only elixirs can alleviate and truly cure it. If you want to go in and diagnose the Ghost Lord's illness, then first beat me in alchemy. Alchemy? Dr. Song says in disbelief, are you kidding? If we could do alchemy, how could we possibly come all the way to the Ghost Wind Valley? These people who have come to the Ghost Wind Valley, which one of them isn't aiming for the secret method of pill condensation? If they could do alchemy, how could they possibly take this kind of risk? What's more, they still have to compete in alchemy with Shirlonling, who had already made a name for herself 10 years ago. Lu Se, Shirlonling. Are you playing with all of us? Lu Se hooks up the corners of her lips, and the flesh on her ugly, pitted face immediately piles together, looking even more terrifying. She laughs sinisterly. Doctors, rest assured. Since you're going to compete with Shirshinzi, you'll naturally have the skill of alchemy. Let us have the skill of alchemy. Could it be that you're going to make the secret method of pill condensation public now? Thinking of this possibility, each and every one of the doctors below becomes fiery. Lu Se doesn't answer them, but claps her hands. Soon, a group of black-clothed ghost envoys come forward with trays. On each tray, there's a small black cup. There's also one in front of Mayan. She takes a look inside, and finds that inside that small cup, there's a black bug the size of a baby's fingernail. An unpleasant stench emanated from the little black bug's body. Just smelling it a little, Mayan immediately feels her stomach turning upside down. She immediately holds her breath. But as she looks at that black bug, her gaze becomes incomparably deep. That's because she already recognizes what it is. The foremost poison in the world, goo. It stinks. Ugh, what the hell is this thing? Why is it so disgusting? In front of Lu Se, a small cup was also brought over. She didn't care at all. She grabbed the little black bug from the goblet and let it crawl on her dry and cracked skin. There's an intoxicated expression on her face. This is the Qi Goo. After taking it, you'll naturally have the ability to condense a Dan. In this way, you'll naturally be able to compete with Shirshinzi. Someone was still holding the small cup and examining it. Hearing Lu Se's words, he immediately revealed a frightened expression, his hands trembling. The small cup fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. The originally quiet little black bug, after landing on the ground, immediately burrowed into that person's body. The seemingly fragile little worm crawled onto the man's skin and quickly burrowed into his flesh. It traveled along the skin and quickly reached the location of the heart. Ah, ah, ah. Get lost. Get lost. Don't crawl into my body. Ah, ah, ah. Help. Chapter 506. The doctor finally calms down, but his face is full of fright, his whole body shivering. Lu Se, Dr. Chen, if you don't believe me, you can try refining the pill on the spot. As soon as her voice falls, someone immediately brings up a huge furnace. All kinds of herbs are placed next to the furnace, and there's also a specialized medicine boy helping to light the furnace fire. Dr. Chen is skeptical, but he still steps forward and starts to refine the pill. As the herbs slowly melt in the furnace, the doctor hesitates for a moment, activating his internal force, wanting to make the pill inside condense and take shape. At this moment, Mayan's pupils slightly contract. Ever since her spiritual root was reconstructed, and she possessed spiritual power, she can see a lot of things that were originally invisible to the naked eye. For example, right now, the Qi Goo inside Dr. Chen's body is still restless after he uses his internal force. The tiny, invisible bug is nibbling at Dr. Chen's heart little by little, sucking his flesh and blood. And what comes in return is that the internal force that Dr. Chen originally sent out from his palm has turned into energy similar to spiritual power. As this kind of pseudo-spiritual power is continuously sent into the pill furnace, the pill in the furnace really starts to slowly condense. And no one knows that in this process, the little black bug attached to Dr. Chen's heart has grown a size. This is using a human body as a sacrifice to feed the goo bug. Although for a short time, it gives people the ability to condense a pill, there will be a day when they will be bitten back by the goo bug. Finally, their heart will be completely eaten, their flesh and blood will be sucked dry, and they will die. Mayan's brows tightly knit together, her gaze towards Lu Se is filled with graveness. This kind of method is really too insidious. At this moment, the pill furnace is emitting smoke in spirals, and the fragrance of medicine wafts. Dr. Chen impatiently steps forward to open the pill furnace. Seeing the pill lying inside, he stares blankly at first. Then he says with disbelief and ecstasy, "Success, I succeeded. I actually refined an pill. This time, it's really a stone that raises 1,000 ripples in the living room." All the doctors gather around to look at the pill. After confirming that it's really a first-grade nourishing chi pill, they are immediately dumbstruck. This goo really can give people alchemy skills. For a moment, everyone's scorching gazes turn towards the small goblet. The chi goo that made them fear and loathe just moments ago is now brimming with alluring magic. As long as I consume this goo worm, I can become an alchemist. Some people couldn't help but stretch their hands towards the small goblet. Dr. Wang, who was standing beside Mu Yan, also had a fiery expression on his face. He wished that he could immediately swallow the goo worm like Dr. Chin so that he could immediately have the ability to refine pills. However, his hand had just stretched out when it was grabbed by a slender hand that was snow white like jade. The girl's light and sweet-sounding voice was neither light nor heavy. It slowly sounded, but it was like a morning bell, ringing in everyone's mind. The so-called goo worms need to be fed with flesh and poison to survive. May I ask Ghost King Lu, what is used to feed this chi goo? It's unknown when, but Mayan has already stood up from her seat, looking towards Lu Se's direction. Just now, Ghost King Lu said that as long as you win, you can always have the secret alchemy skill. In that case, what would happen to those who failed? After taking in the chi goo, can it still be taken out? As soon as these words came out, it was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads. Chapter 507. It was only at this moment that everyone awoke from their burning desire for the alchemy's secret technique. He remembered how terrifying goo worms were. For a moment, everyone retracted their hands and avoided the small goblet like avoiding a snake or a scorpion. On the other hand, the joy on Dr. Chen's face faded and was replaced by fear. Shi Lonling grits her teeth and fiercely glares at Mayan. "Slut, mind your own business." Mu Yan is too lazy to care about her, she just stares at Lu Se. Lu Se didn't have the slightest intention of avoiding it. She laughed out loud, and looked at everyone's gaze as if she was looking at ants that could be trampled to death at any time. "If you fail, of course, only death awaits you. I've spent a lot of time preparing these chi goo for you, and it wasn't until tonight that they were all ready. How can we waste it? If anyone loses to Shixinzi in alchemy, your flesh and blood will become fodder for the chi goo. To be able to help Ben Wang's lovely chi goo advance, it can also be considered your honor." Lu Se's malicious gaze turns towards Mayan, and she says in a rough voice, "I wonder if the Enchantress of Medicine is satisfied with this explanation. Looking at your delicate skin and tender flesh, I think my chi goo will certainly like you." "No. I don't want to eat the goo, I don't want to be eaten by the goo." Someone finally couldn't help but scream in horror, "Let me go, I don't want to treat the Ghost King, and I don't want any alchemy secret skill, let me go." As he spoke, he madly rushed out of the hall. However, just as he reached the door, he was stopped by a ghost officer. "What do you want? Do you want to force me to consume the goo?" "I'm telling you, I'm a senior doctor, there are a lot of martial artists out there who would sell their lives for me. If you dare to touch me, I promise to raze your ghost city to the ground." Lu Se let out a low sigh. "Are you really giving up?" Of course it's true." A treacherous smile appeared on Lu Se's ugly face. "All right then, let him go. Our ghost city will not force anyone." Hearing Lu Se's words, the ghost messenger guarding the door immediately retreated to the side. After the doctor recovered from his shock, he thought that Lu Se had been frightened by him. He immediately revealed a complacent expression and swaggered out. As he left, he was still spitting out ruthless words, "Lu Se, Sherlonling, just you wait. I will never let this matter rest." Everyone saw that he had really left the main hall safe and sound. A few doctors were tempted and wanted to follow them. Right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. The doctor had just taken 10 steps out of the hall when he suddenly grabbed his own throat. His body was on the verge of collapse. A series of intermittent cracking sounds came from his throat. Then he swung round, swaying unsteadily. The lights outside the Dark Knight Palace shone faintly on his face. In an instant, the crowd let out screams of terror. Black holes appeared on his face. It was as if it had been corrupted by something. A thick, stinky, dark brown liquid flowed out of his gaping mouth. In just a short period of time, the senior doctor who had been elegant and graceful just a moment ago had unexpectedly become even more terrifying than Lu Se. He breathed his last. The entire hall was deathly silent. The next moment, someone asked with a trembling voice, What's going on?" Chapter 508. Apart from this hall, there is not a single living thing in the entire Ghost Wind Valley. As for the rest of you, as long as you take a step out of this hall, you will become exactly like him. It was indeed the poison smog. Mayin's complexion becomes more and more grave, and she can hear the thumping of her heart in her ears. She knows very well that nothing should happen to Di Mingju and the others, but she still can't stop worrying. He had already given the antidote to the poison smog to the 3 of them. They shouldn't be corroded by the poison smog, right? Meanwhile, Lu Se was already looking around from high above. She sneered, "Now, is there anyone else who wants to leave?" There was dead silence. "Hee, you should have been obedient from the start." Lu Se clapped her hands, "Since there are no objections, let's start the competition now." As she said that, she casually pointed. "Let's start with you." She was actually referring to Dr. Chin, who had just successfully concocted a pill. The pill he had just successfully refined was an inferior first-grade qi nourishing pill. Sherlonling held the pill he refined in her hand, her face full of disdain. "If you want to compete with me, you have to refine a second-rank pill. Otherwise, I won't bother to make a move. Did you hear that?" Lu Se looked at Dr. Chin, "Concoct medicinal pills of second rank and above." No. It's my first time concocting pills. It's impossible for me to concoct a second-grade pill." Before he could finish his words, he was lifted up by the neck by the ghost messenger. "If you don't want to concoct pills, then throw you out of the hall." What was outside the hall? It was the poison smog that could turn a person into a corpse in an instant. "I concoct pills. I will concoct the pill now." Dr. Chin cried and crawled to the front of the furnace to start concocting the pill. After an hour, Dr. Chin had almost exhausted all of his qi. And Mayan also sees that his heart's blood is slowly being sucked away by the chi goo. His entire body became thinner at a visible speed. However, an hour later, there was a loud bang. The pill furnace exploded, and the pill concoction failed. This was inevitable. Even with the assistance of the chi goo, this is, after all, Dr. Chen's first time refining pills. How could he casually refine a second-grade elixir? Dr. Chen stared blankly at the exploding alchemy furnace. Soon after, she looked at Lu Sei in fright, her whole body trembling like a sieve. The corners of Lu Sei's mouth slowly pull up, revealing a mouthful of ghastly white teeth. That smile is really indescribably happy. Dr. Chen's alchemy has failed, then you're just a useless waste. Therefore, right now, you can become my lovely chi goo's food. Spare my life. Ah! A short and shrill scream came out of Dr. Chen's mouth, and then it stopped abruptly. He lay on the ground stiffly. His already skinny body shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. His eye sockets were sunken, and there was only a layer of skin covering his skeleton. He looked like a mummy. Then, at the location of his heart, a small black worm that was several times bigger bit through his flesh and clothes and burrowed out. Fluttering its wings, it flew to Lu Sei's hand and drilled into her body. Dr. Chen's heart, on the other hand, was empty. The crowd fell into a deathly silence once again. Even the ghost envoys of the ghost city, as well as Magistrate Lu, have unsightly expressions on their faces as they watch this scene. And all the invited doctors were even more frightened, their faces drained of blood, their legs trembling. Alright, this one is already useless. Next, who should it be? Chapter 509. Only when she looks at Mayan does she suddenly meet a pair of bottomless peach blossom eyes. Not dodging or avoiding, but it gives her a kind of bone-chilling chill. Lu Sei's eyes slightly narrow, the muscles on her wrinkled and pockmarked face slightly tremble. It's this woman who killed her Xianji. She won't kill her so quickly. She must let her suffer the torment of fear and despair, bit by bit, torture her to death. However, a dark light flashes through Lu Sei's eyes. She always feels that this woman has an energy that she's familiar with, but also frightening. What is it? Her gaze flits over Mayan, and finally falls on a person at random. Next, you. Don't aw. I don't want to take that goo, help. Help aw. An hour later, there are already 3 corpses in the spacious main hall. Each of them has their flesh and blood sucked dry by the chi goo, their hearts gnawed away, dying incomparably miserable deaths. And among these 3 doctors, not a single one could successfully refine a second-level elixir. The entire hall is deathly still, only Shi Lanling's insolent laughter echoes. You call yourselves famous doctors in vain, but you can't even refine a second-level elixir. If you're not trash, then what are you? She looks at everyone with eyes brimming with resentment and hatred. At this moment, that noble fairy who seemed to be above the common populace, no longer exists. Since 3 days ago, when Di Mingju kicked her out of the house naked, many people in the Ghost Wind Valley had seen it. Shi Lanling not only hates Jun Mayan, but also everyone in the Ghost Wind Valley. If she lets these people of the Ghost Wind Valley go out alive, her reputation will really be ruined. Moreover, she's lost face in front of everyone, ridiculed, humiliated. Why can these people be high and mighty as famous doctors? She wants to see these people even more miserable than her, even worse than pigs and dogs. Especially Jun Mayan, that slut. Shi Lanling looks at Mayan, and sees that her face no longer has a leisurely expression, but has a dignified expression. Her heart is really unspeakably carefree. This slut, seeing so many people die tragically, she's finally afraid. But it's useless to be afraid. Today, I will make you die without a burial ground. TSK TSK, so many have already died. Who's next? Sherlonling chuckles, then she suddenly turns her gaze towards Mayan, June Mayan, as the Shinshu of my ghost city, as well as the renowned Enchantress of medicine. Don't you want to contribute to our ghost king? Dr. Wang, who was standing next to Mu Yen, immediately changed his expression, and his whole body trembled. But he still couldn't help but tremble as he says, Dr. June is best at refining drafts, and she's so young. It's better not. If I don't let her do it, are you going to do it? Hearing Sherlonling's question, Dr. Wang's face immediately turned pale. He didn't dare to say anything else. Mu Yen sneers and is about to step forward. Suddenly, a loud voice rang out, this old man will compete with you. Mayan stares blankly as she sees Dr. Song striding forward. In her hand, she's still holding the small cup containing the qi goo. Seeing that he's about to eat that qi goo, Mayan promptly stops him. Dr. Song, you don't need to do it for me. Chapter 5:10. At your age, you actually have such godly medical skills, and can even refine such a heaven-defying draft. This shows that your potential is limitless. No matter how useless our old bones are, we won't let a little girl like you sacrifice herself before us. What Yenwu continent's practitioners and mortals need the most is the existence and continuation of doctors like you. Saying that, without waiting for Mayan to stop him, he directly swallows the qi goo in the small cup into his belly. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly contract. An indescribable emotion surged from her organs to her brain. Dr. Song has already walked forward with large strides. He coldly looks at Lu Sei and Sherlonling. Elegant and holy Shirshinzi, I spit on you. It turned out that she was just a black-hearted woman with a human face but a beast's heart. For a beast like you to be called a doctor, it's an insult to other doctors who save the dying and heal the injured. Old fart. All right. Since you don't want to live anymore, don't blame me for being impolite. Sherlonling's entire face contorted in anger. With a wave of her hand, a ghost constable swiftly brought over her personal pill furnace. Dr. Song did not look at her again as he walked straight to his pill furnace. As the medicinal herbs were melted by the raging fire, the powerful Xian Qi in Dr. Song's body revolved, driving the medicinal concoction to fuse. Just like the doctors before him. Mayan can clearly see that the qi goo that's attached to his heart is nibbling away at his flesh little by little. Dr. Song's originally rosy complexion gradually turned pale as time passed. His eye sockets also began to sink in. This was because if he wanted to refine a second-grade elixir, he would need to consume more profound qi. And the more internal force it mobilizes, the more flesh and blood it will stimulate the qi goo to consume. But if he didn't consume a large amount of profound qi, it was impossible to condense elixirs of second grade and above. This was a vicious cycle that pushed people into a dead end. 2 hours later, a medicinal fragrance wafted out from the pill furnace in front of Dr. Song. And this fragrance made all the doctors in the hall restless. This is a second-grade, Xian Yuan pill, and from the rich fragrance, it's at least a second-grade upper-grade pill. That's great. As expected of Dr. Song, he actually refined a second-grade medicinal pill. Almost at the same time, Sherlonling also succeeded in concocting pills. Compared to Dr. Song, who was thin and haggard after concocting pills, Sherlonling's forehead was only slightly sweaty, but her skin was becoming increasingly light and transparent, radiating radiance. She looked at Dr. Song contemptuously, her face full of disdain. At this moment, a ghost messenger walked in front of Dr. Song and opened the pill furnace. There were 3 pills in the furnace. They were translucent, round, and fragrant. The ghost envoy picked up a pill, distinguishing it, then said in a clear voice, "Superior second grade, Xian Yuan pill. This is great. It really is a superior grade 2 pill. We won this time. We have hope." However, very quickly, the ghost messenger arrived in front of Shi Lonling, picked up the pill in front of her, sniffed it, and tasted it. Then he said loudly, "Third grade medium Xianyuan pill." In an instant, the noisy hall became deathly silent. The doctors who were overjoyed just a moment ago turned pale, and their faces were filled with despair. Dr. Song's body swayed, and he almost couldn't support himself to stand. Chapter 5:11. Lu Se also reveals an ambiguous smile, using a rough voice to say, "Since you failed in the alchemy competition, then Dr. Song, you can only become my Chi Gu's fodder." Dr. Song's pupils constricted slightly. There was obvious fear and shock in his eyes. Anyone who has seen with their own eyes that the Chi Gu has sucked the flesh and blood dry, the heart hollowed out of the corpse, there's no way they wouldn't be terrified. Soon, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. There was also the despair and coldness of his life force being sucked out bit by bit. Just as he was about to close his eyes and give up on life, suddenly, a hand grasped his wrist meridian. Dr. Song opened his eyes in surprise and saw a beautiful face right in front of him. Then, before he could react, the girl's calm voice came into his ears, "Dr. Song, I'm sorry." A pair of slender hands suddenly tore open his clothes. His already bony chest was exposed. One by one, the silver needles were pierced into his body. As more and more silver needles pierced in, the thick profound energy seeped through the silver needles into his acupoints and tendons. Dr. Song actually felt the pain in his heart and the coldness in his body slowly recede. Then, a sharp pain came from the skin on his chest. The girl in front of him held a knife in her hand, and her movements were extremely clean and efficient as she cut open his chest. Then, he raised his hand and dropped the needle. By the time everyone reacted, Dr. Song could no longer hold on and collapsed to the ground. On Mu Yan's hand, there's already a black bug the size of an adult fingernail poking out with a silver needle. Chi Gu. The black insect was pierced by the silver needle. It struggled violently and made a strange, ear-piercing sound. However, as Mu Yan revolves her internal force, the silver needle bursts into a scorching flame. That Chi Gu is immediately burnt to ashes. Once again, the whole place was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Until Mayan throws away the silver needles, pats off the dust on her hands, and shows Lu Se a charming and provocative smile. "So this is the Chi Gu ah." His tone was filled with disdain. Lu Se's gaze instantly became incomparably cold, her whole body emitting a powerful pressure and murderous aura. That almost suffocating pressure and murderous aura caused the doctors who had just been wild with joy to once again sink into a state of panic. Mu Yan's expression also becomes serious. This time, it was not an illusion. She clearly felt that this Lu Se's cultivation was higher than hers. Even the aura emanating from her body is far higher than that of the Yanwu continent. Just like the pressure that occasionally leaks from Di Mingju and the others. And at this moment, Lu Se slowly, with a hoarse and unpleasant-to-hear voice, said, "Miss June's bare-handed medical skill in taking the gu really makes me gasp in amazement.